Chapter 945. Actually, going to the hospital to look for Tang Ying at this time was a bit of a stroke of luck, but Chen Guang didn't expect that she would actually be blocked. Just as he walked up the stairs, he saw Tang Ying hurrying out of her office in a white coat. Her hair looked a little messy, and her complexion didn't seem to be very good, looking a little pale. It seemed that she had been trying her best to clean up the mess on hand in order to escape, and it was quite tiring. She walked quickly, looking down at her phone with a frown. He didn't know what had happened to make her so anxious. Chen Guang saw that she was walking straight towards him with her head lowered, so he deliberately didn't make a sound. When she got closer, he suddenly let out a cry. "Where are you going?" "Ah!" Tang Ying let out a sharp scream. She looked up abruptly and saw that it was Chen Guang. She was instantly embarrassed and angry. "What are you doing? Are you trying to scare me to death?" Chen Guang didn't expect her to be so loud, so he hurriedly made a shushing gesture. "Lower your voice. It's midnight in the hospital, and the patients are all asleep. It's forbidden to make noise." Tang Ying gave him a dirty look. "It's all your fault. You scare me when you had nothing better to do, and now you're lecturing me." Chen Guang grinned. "It's all because you're always looking down at your phone when you're walking. People like you are the type of people who keep their heads down on the internet." Tang Ying tugged at his shirt. "Go away. Don't you know?" Chen Guang was stunned. "Don't know what? You really don't know? I thought you came because of Miss Tong. What's wrong with her? Why didn't she tell you when something happened to her?" Tang Ying said as she pulled Chen Guang to the emergency department of the inpatient department. Chen Guang followed behind, confused. He subconsciously thought that something might have happened to Wu Tong. What's going on? He was a little anxious. He knew that Wu Tong had come back to be the bureau chief. Previously, because he had to solve the problem of the internal force martial artist, he did not want to involve her, a police chief who was between an ordinary person and a related person. Therefore, when he had nothing to do, he deliberately did not contact Wu Tong to avoid arousing suspicion. Otherwise, with her overflowing sense of justice and sometimes reckless behavior, coupled with her little bit of power and connections to inquire about relevant matters, it would be troublesome if she were to follow them. Ever since the last time Chen Guang held a piano performance in Beijing, Wu Tong led a team to provide security for him. The two of them hadn't seen each other for a long time, and they rarely even called each other. Wu Tong was well aware of this. She was helpless, but there was nothing she could do. Ever since Chen Guang became the director of the Guangdong General Administration, she had also inquired about a lot of information from Wu Shan. Gradually, Wu Shan told her that what Chen Guang was facing now was beyond the level of his qualifications as the head of the department. Things had become unimaginably troublesome. If ordinary people were to get involved, on the one hand, they might encounter unimaginable dangers. On the other hand, it would also become a breakthrough point for others to threaten Chen Guang. It was precisely because she knew these things that Wu Tong deliberately kept a distance from Chen Guang on the surface. When she returned to Wujing to be the director, she simply told Chen Guang that she was back. It wasn't because she was afraid of danger. After all, being a police officer wasn't a safe job. She just didn't want to be a burden to Chen Guang, especially after she heard that he sent his family overseas. Thus, she was even more determined in her decision. Sometimes she would think that Chen Guang's growth was too fast. It was as if he was just an insignificant young man in school who still needed her protection. But in the blink of an eye, he ran a company and became the director. He suddenly rose to a height that was difficult for her to reach. The change was too fast, and she was caught off guard. From time to time, when she was busy with work, Wu Tong would think about what kind of existence she was to Chen Guang. What kind of role did she play in his heart? Did he not care about her? Of course not. When she was kidnapped by the World Destroyer, her life was hanging by a thread. At that time, Chen Guang was not strong at all. He descended from the sky with his bare hands and saved her from certain death. In this world, besides him, there was no other man who could do such a thing. At that time, the two of them had only met each other a few times. They were just friends who got along well with each other. There was even a small conflict between them. Although they claimed to be sister and brother, they were not related by blood. Wu Tong even put herself in Chen Guang's shoes. When faced with such a choice, she was afraid that she would not be as brave and fearless as he was. Therefore, he definitely cared about her. But in the end, no one was perfect. This bad brother of hers also had the bad habits that his peers should have. His heart was always wandering. Fortunately, she did not expect anything. She was older than him by 5 years. It was good that they maintained their current relationship, and there was no pressure on them. Wu Tong actually vaguely knew about the destruction of the Shadow Alliance. She also knew about Chun Guang's recent movements and also knew about his resignation. These were all news that she heard from Wu Shan, who was close to the higher-ups and was the representative of the younger generation. Until now, Wu Tong had not taken the initiative to contact Chun Guang. On one hand, it was because she was busy with work. On the other hand, she knew that Chun Guang had a lot of things to do. But most importantly, she wanted to see when this heartless brat would think of her. Ever since she found out that Chun Guang had resigned, she had been counting the time every day. If this guy didn't call in another 3 days and insisted on contacting him, then he would be dead. In the end, she was unlucky. Originally, ever since she became the bureau chief, whether it was the people in the bureau or her father, Wu Shan, they were determined not to give her the opportunity to personally go to work. In order to find a chance to rush to the front line, Wu Tong had recently stopped driving to and from work. Instead, she took the subway. Even if she could only catch a thief, it would be enough to satisfy her craving. Today, she bumped into one and was immediately overjoyed. Usually, with her skills, it was too easy to deal with a thief. But today, that guy seemed to be on steroids. After she found him at the subway station, he turned around and ran extremely fast. Even with Wu Tong's top-notch stamina among the male students in Shun's special training camp, she almost couldn't catch up. Later, when she was about to catch up, that guy turned around and threw the large-screen smartphone he had just stolen at her. Why did he emphasize the large screen? It was because the phone really hurt when it hit her shoulder. But after that guy threw the phone like a cannonball, he strangely fell to the ground, foaming at the mouth and twitching. Wu Tong still managed to handcuff him with one hand. She turned around and saw that the phone that hit her shoulder was completely deformed on the ground. Her collarbone was swollen and painful. Her collarbone was actually broken by the phone that was thrown at her so close. Wu Tong was extremely shocked. She was not an ordinary person. She was well-trained and proficient in fighting. Her bones were far harder than ordinary people. And who could easily break a person's collarbone with a phone? Who could throw a phone like a cannonball with so much force? You're not Xinguang. Wu Tong struggled to call her colleagues in the bureau to send this guy to the hospital with her. But on the way to the hospital, that guy woke up and seemed to be fine. On the way, she actually wanted to call Chun Guang and tell him that she was injured today. But she finally endured it. Since she said that she would endure it, she couldn't easily admit defeat. Do you know? Your big sis is injured. Although I don't know why she didn't tell you about it. When you see her later, you can't tell her that you came to see me. No matter how you lie, you have to say that you found out about it and came to see her. Just treat it as a way to make her happy. Tang Ying led the way in front while whispering to Chen Guang. Chen Guang nodded. Yeah, I know. I'd like to see what kind of thief was able to break Sister Wu Tong's bones. Vaguely, he suddenly realized that Tang Ying's decision to run away might not be because she wanted to renege on the bet. But he didn't say it out loud. It was meaningless. History had taught him that it was useless to overthink things. As the saying goes, the boat will cross the bridge when it comes to it. That was the right path in life. The two walked side by side into the emergency surgery consultation room. Wu Tong, who was lying on the bed with a pale face, frowned and deep in thought, suddenly turned to look at the two of them. Her face suddenly blossomed into a smile. You, why are you here? Tang Ying secretly rolled her eyes. She knew it would turn out like this. The two of them had obviously come in together, but this guy who only cared about the opposite sex completely ignored her. Chun Guang hesitated for a moment. Actually, he didn't want to lie. Just now, to his surprise, Tang Ying, who was standing beside him, seemed to have seen through his thoughts and interrupted him. I bumped into him on the way here. Your little brother sure is resourceful. He found out the moment you got into trouble. Since Tang Ying had already lied, Chun Guang couldn't just turn around and expose her in front of her face. He could only chuckle. I say, you're really something. You're already a bureau chief. Why do you have to catch a thief yourself? Wu Tong raised her uninjured hand and clenched her fist. My hands are itchy. She believed what Tang Ying said. It was unlikely that Tang Ying was the one who informed Qinguang. After all, when she arrived at the hospital, she found out that the doctor on duty was a male doctor. She didn't want him to bandage her, so she texted Tang Ying. The doctor on duty was relieved. After saying goodbye to Tang Ying, he retreated out of the treatment room and closed the door behind him. Tang Ying went to lock the treatment room door. She then turned to look at Qinguang. She couldn't be bothered to ask for Wu Tong's opinion. She simply said, "All right, you two can stop reminiscing. Miss Tong, take off your coat first. I'll check your injuries." She had bandaged Wu Tong's wounds many times since she was young. Sometimes, she even felt that it was all thanks to Wu Tong that she fell in love with being a doctor. Oh, Wu Tong gritted her teeth and started to take off her coat. She really didn't care about Qinguang. She didn't think it was necessary at all. Qinguang felt his heart ache when he saw Wu Tong's face turn red from the pain. He walked up to her and gently placed his fingers on her collarbone. He channeled some inner force into her body to suppress the pain a little. Wu Tong was stunned. She turned to look at him. "You've really become a martial arts master?" Qinguang grunted. "The person in front of you is the current, oh no, the greatest martial arts master in history." Cocky. Wu Tong rolled her eyes. With Tang Ying's help, she carefully took off her coat. She was only wearing a sky blue bra inside. Chapter 946. Hearing those words, Qinguang's calm face froze with his hands trembling. He might be close to Wu Tong, but he had never taken advantage of her eyes in the past. Fortunately, his acting skills had reached perfection. Although his heart was pounding, he didn't show it on his face. Tang Ying sneaked a peek at Qinguang's expression before focusing all her attention on Tang Ying. Wu Tong was actually quite shy, but her shoulder was hurting badly and it didn't seem like a big deal to let him take a look. As expected of an outstanding student from Shun's special training camp. Although Wu Tong's neck was blushing, her face was completely under control. But that wasn't the end. Tang Ying squinted her eyes and carefully examined Wu Tong's collarbone. She lifted her fingers and gently pulled open the strap of her bra. "All right, I need to fix the bandages on your upper body and take off your bra." Wu Tong glared at her. Huh? What huh? It wasn't the first time, so he was quick. "Forget it. Qinguang, help me undo the strap." Qinguang gulped down a mouthful of saliva and felt that he had done a great job as a nurse. Sister Wu Tong, I'll do it." Wu Tong's body stiffened and she snorted. All right. Be gentle." Qinguang placed his finger on it and clumsily pulled it open bit by bit. With a click, it unlocked. "You're so slow. What haven't you two done before? Why are you pretending to be innocent?" Tang Ying impatiently pulled the sky blue bra away from the front and emphasized, "Lady Tong, don't move your hands around. Otherwise, your injuries will worsen." "Yo, you're jumping around happily." "Lady Ying, shut up." Wu Tong couldn't hold it in anymore. She had seen Qinguang's every move before, but now there was a third party around. It was a little too stimulating. Unknowingly, her skin gradually turned pink, and she had goosebumps all over her body. After a long while, Wu Tong finally calmed down. Fortunately, her back was facing that guy, and he couldn't see anything. "Wait, what is this? Damn it, what a scam." Wu Tong raised her head and looked at the mirror in front of her, as well as Qinguang's shifty eyes that were staring at her chest through the mirror. "I'm done for. I've been seen naked. Forget it. I'll just watch. I won't lose any meat anyway." Qinguang's eyes widened. At first, he had the same thought as Wu Tong that he could not see anything behind him. However, the mirror in the emergency room was a standard feature. It was hung on the wall, so he could see it when he raised his head. Tang Ying, who had just returned from concocting the medicine, almost laughed out loud when she saw the two of them staring at each other dumbstruck. No one knew what was going through Tang Ying's mind. She subconsciously pushed Wu Tong's chest and turned to Qinguang with a smirk. "Are you dumbfounded?" Wu Tong was agitated and screamed, Don't mess around. Don't move. Don't move. I've applied some ointment for you." Qinguang looked at the two trembling bunnies and thought to himself, the old man didn't learn that dart technique for nothing. My eyesight is really good. Those clear skin lines, that color, that tall and straight figure. Cough, cough. Take it, take it. Tang Ying stopped fooling around and became obedient. She quickly applied the ointment for Wu Tong. At this moment, Wu Tong's collarbone was red and swollen. Tang Ying's movements were also very careful. Although Wu Tong grimaced in pain from time to time, she forced herself to endure it. Since she was half naked, she felt a little awkward, so she decided to say something to divert attention. She imitated Guan Gong's imposing manner of scraping bones to treat wounds and said casually, "The thief we caught today is really strange. He looks so skinny, but he's so strong. It's weird." A skinny man who could easily injure Wu Tong? Chun Guang's eyes were still staring at the mirror shamelessly, but his brows were slightly furrowed. He subconsciously thought that Wu Tong's words were related to inner force martial artists. But on second thought, he felt that it was unlikely. The saying that the poor study while the rich practice martial arts was not groundless. Without some financial foundation, it was impossible to practice martial arts. Those who were able to practice martial arts were either from various sects or clans. Even if they weren't, they were at least from wealthy families. Almost no poor person would be able to practice martial arts without any financial foundation. But as long as they were successful, the worst they could do was at least at the level of Lu Chao's bodyguard, Tai Fan Shu. For example, Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan's sects were small and incomparable to the 3 aristocratic families, the 8 major sects, and the 27 sections. They belonged to the 4th tier of sects in Jianghu, but they never had to worry about money. It was impossible for someone who had to sneak around on the subway to possess inner force. At present, almost all inner force martial artists have been registered in the headquarters, so there were very few who were wandering outside. Most of them were senior experts who had been living in seclusion for years, so it was even more impossible for them to be thieves. Chen Guang couldn't help but be curious. What kind of person was he? He asked, "Where is he now?" Wu Tong said, "He went to the hospital for a simple examination and found that there was nothing wrong with him. He has been sent to the detention center. Then I'll go meet him and see what kind of person he is." "Save it. You've already caught him. Are you going to beat him up? Wouldn't that be lynching?" "Don't worry. Stealing and assaulting a police officer are enough to make him suffer. You'd better not interfere with my work. With your bad temper, you can make small things into big things." Wu Tong immediately rejected Chun Guang's proposal. Seeing that she insisted, Chun Guang didn't say anything else. He secretly laughed at himself. He had just thrown away the title of the director of the Guangdong headquarters, but he still hadn't completely adjusted his mentality. He was subconsciously worried about the country and the people. Letting out a sigh, Chun Guang replied, "All right, I'll listen to you, but you have to be careful. It's easy for you to make enemies out of your position, so you have to tell me if anything happens. I'm not bragging, but I'm really powerful now. I can fight 100 people in minutes." Okay, don't worry. I won't be stubborn." On the other side, Tang Ying deftly fixed Wu Tong's bandages and splints. Then, she clapped her hands. "Done. You're also an old patient. You know you have to move your hands less. Eat more vegetables, eggs, and meat. I won't emphasize it to you. Come to me tomorrow and the day after. I'll change your dressing." Although her real profession wasn't orthopedics, her skills were extremely high. The triangular bandages were quite exquisite. Next to her, Chun Guang asked, "I don't need to be hospitalized?" He pretended to ask as he continued to glance at the mirror. "Sigh, there's nothing to see." Her upper body was tightly bound by bandages and splints. Her upper body was tightly wrapped and airtight. Wu Tong waved her hand indifferently. "Why would I need to be hospitalized for such a small injury? I'll be fine in a few days." She wasn't being stubborn. When she was studying and training in the police academy, she had fallen from a platform several meters high. Her fall was much worse than this one, but it didn't take long for her to recover. Her bone healing ability was far stronger than the average person's. This was probably the real secret behind her strong close combat ability despite being a woman. It was a natural gift. Chen Guang turned to look at Tang Ying. He seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he didn't bring it up. Instead, he said to Wu Tong, "You can drive now. Why don't I send you home?" Wu Tong nodded. Okay, then we'll go back now. Missing, can you help me put on my clothes? As she said that, she slightly tugged at the bandages under her chest. Missing, you're too tight. Are you trying to flatten me? Shut up. Your bones are fractured. If you don't fix them tighter, you'll move around and injure yourself. Tang Ying couldn't be bothered to talk to her. Just as she put on her coat, Wu Tong's phone rang again. She picked it up and chatted for a while before hanging up. She looked at Qin Guang dejectedly. Sigh, forget it. Qin Guang, you can go back by yourself. My dad said he's coming to pick me up. After saying that, she seemed to be afraid that Wu Shan would bump into Qin Guang. She got up and hurried to the door. As soon as she opened the door, Wu Shan's voice came from outside. I told you to be more obedient, but you wouldn't listen. Now you're hurt, right? Happy now. Wu Shan scolded Wu Tong. None of your business. Aren't you the same? You're hurt less, aren't you? You. Why are you like this again? All right. I got it. I'll be more careful next time. Let's go. I'll go say thank you to Tang Ying. Tang Ying has already returned to her office. She's very busy. She doesn't have time to wait for you to say thank you. Besides, there's no need for thanks between us sisters. Let's go. As Wu Tong and Wu Shan's voices faded away, Qin Guang was left in a daze as he had no idea what was going on. Qin Guang turned to look at Tang Ying. What's going on? It seems like Sister Wu Tong is asking me to avoid talking to Uncle Wu Shan. Tang Ying's eyes flickered slightly, but seeing that she couldn't avoid it, she sighed. She told me about it yesterday. Isn't it because of you? What's wrong? You used to work in a very special department, right? Qin Guang nodded. Yes, very special. What's her name? Tang Ying's curiosity was suddenly piqued. I asked her, but she wouldn't tell me. She only said that the confidentiality level is very high. According to the rules, she doesn't even have the right to know. If she tells me, it's against the rules. There's nothing that can't be said here. It's up to me whether or not I can keep it a secret. Huh? Light, swollen, chrysanthemum? Qin Guang knew it would be like this. Wrong. What nonsense are you thinking about? Light as in radiance, calm as in sea-stabilizing needle? Tang Ying looked him up and down. What a perverted name. Did you come up with it? I'm really innocent. But I heard that when I was named, it was because of the word light in my name. All right, let's not talk about the name anymore. Anyway, Lady Tong said that it's easy for you to resign and leave, but it seems that some people don't want to let you off the hook completely. Their original intention was to let your old friend, Wu Shan, interact with you more. They don't want you to be a free man. Uncle Wu Shan will advance soon, but the things he's in charge of shouldn't be much different from now. If he maintains a relationship with you, he might be able to meet some people's needs. Chapter 947. Qin Guang rolled his eyes. President Rao was not the only backup plan prepared by the elders. These people were good at playing one trick behind his back. On one hand, they wanted him to give up his power, but on the other hand, they did not want to let go of his influence among the inner force users. Perhaps more importantly, they did not want to let go of his peerless martial arts that allowed him to kill Ouyang Tianxing. In the end, they still wanted to turn him into their tool. Tang Ying saw that he was distracted and looked at him curiously. How powerful are you now? I'm a professional doctor, but I can't see any changes with my naked eye. No, your muscles are a little stronger, but you're just a person with a nose and eyes. You don't have 3 heads and 6 arms. Qin Guang looked around and ran to the sink to find the faucet. He placed his thumb and index finger on the metal faucet and exerted some force. Here, see for yourself how powerful I am. Tang Ying walked over slowly and stared at the faucet. There were 2 clear fingerprints on the metal faucet. How'd you do it? Tang Ying was shocked. He only used 2 fingers to exert a little force. He didn't even see him use much strength, but it was already like this. It was merely 2 fingers. How much strength did he have? Qin Guang chuckled. Just a little pinch, and it's like this. Tang Ying still could not understand. From a medical point of view, Qin Guang's bones and muscles were like a hydraulic press. Tang Ying wanted to examine his hand again, but there was a knock on the door. Section Chief Tang? Can I come in now? Tang Ying could not care less about Qin Guang. She quickly picked up the bra that Wu Tong had left on the blanket. What's wrong? Come in. The male doctor from the emergency department poked his head in. Section Chief Tang, you guys, I. Tang Ying understood and quickly said, Okay, we'll go now. When the man turned and left, Tang Ying grabbed the sky blue bra on the bed and stuffed it into Chen Guang's hand. Take it. Chen Guang took in his hand. He could still feel the warmth of her body through his fingers. What? Take care of your sister's things for her. I'm so busy right now that I don't have time to send them back to her. Whether you want to keep them for yourself or send them back to her, that's up to you. Sister Tang Ying, I still need a pair of lace underwear. Scram. The two walked out of the emergency room. Tang Ying then said, Forget it. I won't ask you anymore. If there's nothing else, I'll go back to my shift. When she said this, Chen Guang felt that her eyes were slightly evasive. It was obvious that she had remembered the bet and was pretending not to know. She really wanted to go back on her word. Sister Tang Ying, I saw another chief physician in your office. You're not on duty today, right? Tang Ying was taken aback. Fine, you saw through me. Chen Guang suddenly took a deep breath and asked, So, you want to go back on your word? Tang Ying's body trembled. She was slightly stunned at first, but she soon noticed the provocative look in Chen Guang's eyes. Who said I want to go back on my word? Then I heard from someone that you're planning to run to America. Did little Kai tell you that? Don't worry about where I heard it from. Just tell me, are you trying to go back on your word? If you really want to go back on your word, then just say it. I won't say another word. I've always been a reasonable person, but I'll never bet with you again. Sigh, this is a game of luck. Go. Tang Ying, always mean what I say. I never go back on my word. Last time even, I was on the plane because of you. Then why do you suddenly want to go to America? Huh? Don't tell me you think I'm afraid I'll let Miss Tong down. So I'm purposely avoiding you? Unexpectedly, Tang Ying took the initiative to say this. Isn't that so? This time, it was Chen Guang's turn to be a loss. Tang Ying smiled disdainfully. Are you kidding me? If I really thought that way, I would have ignored you a long time ago. I know your sister Wu Tong's thoughts better than anyone else. I can guarantee you that she doesn't mind at all. Back then, when we were watching porn together, we even... Ahem. Anyway, this has nothing to do with her. Chen Guang's eyes lit up. What's going on between the two of you? Get lost. Are you going to listen to my explanation? Listen. Tang Ying composed herself and sighed. To tell you the truth, I've been back in China for more than half a year. I've met many patients and finished my thesis. But recently, I've encountered some unpleasant issues when publishing my thesis. I had to ask little Kai for help to resolve them. Let's not talk about these trivial matters. Anyway, I'm a little disappointed with the state of research in China. I feel that staying in a hospital is a little boring. I plan to take this opportunity to visit my alma mater. If it's possible, I'd like Moorlands and Gokyo University's medical department to jointly set up a research institute. I'm just going to switch from clinical to scientific research. If I'm just going to be a clinical doctor for the rest of my life, I won't be able to save many people. Only by switching to scientific research and making some achievements in academia can I realize my ambition. In the past half a year, I've pretty much figured out the situation in China. It's time to take the next step. Nobel Prize in Medicine. Chen Guang narrowed his eyes and looked at her. He had intended to tease her, but unexpectedly, Tang Ying raised her eyebrows. That's right. This is my lifelong pursuit. For this, I can stay single for the rest of my life, just like your sister Wu Tong, who swore to catch all the criminals in the world. The two of you are really good friends. Tang Ying covered her mouth and laughed. You can call it birds of a feather. Chen Guang also laughed. He finally understood the real situation in Tang Ying and Wu Tong's hearts, and he felt a lot more relieved. He and Tang Ying had known each other for a long time. If this kind of words came out of someone else's mouth, it might seem a little ridiculous. However, the person who said this was the youngest doctor in the famous Moorlands Medical College in the past 20 years, and she was already famous both domestically and abroad at such a young age. Chen Guang knew that she was serious. When she said these words in a seemingly joking tone, her eyes flashed with the brilliance of incomparable determination. People will always be great because of their dreams. Moreover, Tang Ying's seemingly unreachable dream was great in itself. Chun Guang's slightly out-of-control desire from taking advantage of Wu Tong's eyes in the mirror had unknowingly dissipated a lot. Okay, I understand, but I don't know how I can help you. If you need anything, just let me know. It was a pity that Tang Ying was not short of money. Otherwise, Chun Guang felt that if she wanted to set up a research institute, he would be able to sponsor some of it. However, when he thought about her rich younger brother and her family's assets, there was no need for him to help. Okay, thank you for your kindness. Chun Guang hesitated for a moment. Then, about the bet, forget it. Just pretend I never mentioned it. Seeing how Tang Ying was obsessed with knowledge and had lofty ambitions, Chun Guang felt ashamed of his inferiority. Her brilliance made him seem like a vile person. Really? Tang Ying tilted her head and looked straight at him. Chun Guang nodded reluctantly. Really? You won't regret it? No. Come on. Looking at your aggrieved face, even I feel sorry for you. Don't look down on me. Although I plan to stay single for the rest of my life, I don't reject men. I'm also a normal woman. What do you mean? Tang Ying smiled meaningfully. You know what I mean. Chun Guang's eyes widened. He roughly understood what Tang Ying meant. What did the old man have to deserve? Okay, it's just that I've been too busy recently. Otherwise, I would have fulfilled my promise for you tonight. Anyway, I'm telling you, you don't have to worry. Sigh. Poor me. I only know how to deal with books and patience all day. It's not easy to meet a young man that I like. You're not bad, and a lot of things have happened with you on and off. What's that saying again? Boiling a frog in warm water. Yes, I don't know if you're frog or warm water. Anyway, we'll get to know each other sooner or later, at least until I meet a man who is more reliable and interesting than you. Do you have confidence in yourself? Chun Guang really didn't know how to answer her. It didn't seem right to say that he had confidence in himself. It was strange for her to talk about such improper things with a straight face. But if he said that he wasn't confident, he would feel uncomfortable. As the two chatted, they unknowingly returned to Tang Ying's dormitory. Her roommate, the female doctor, was not around tonight. Chun Guang sat down and took a sip of the cold tea. You're not going to the on-call room? I'll go later. I need to take a break. By the way, if we can really set up a research institute, won't you be a professor at my school? Tang Ying nodded. That's right. Say hello to your teacher. Go, go, go. You want to be the director of the research institute? Uh-huh. That's amazing. Sigh. It's a pity that I don't know how I can help you. I only have money now, but you don't lack it. Chun Guang brought up the past again and sighed. At this moment, he really didn't have any other thoughts in his mind. Unexpectedly, after listening to his words, Tang Ying's eyes gradually brightened as she looked at him. Chun Guang felt goosebumps under her gaze. What are you thinking about? Tang Ying suddenly straightened up and approached him. You really want to help me? Other than that kind of thing? Chun Guang nodded blankly. Of course, don't think that I only have that one function. That's right. In my eyes, you have other functions. What are you trying to say? I also know that there are some talented people in this world who can practice a kind of qigong called internal force. You said that you're already the world. Oh no, the first in history. You're not bragging, are you? Chun Guang nodded. I'm not bragging. I'm telling the truth. Then does this mean that your talent in practicing internal force is countless times greater than that of ordinary people? Chun Guang nodded shamelessly. That's right. My talent is extraordinary. It's rare to see one in 1,000 years. You've shown me your ability in that area before. You even broke the wooden plank. I also know that you participated in the arm wrestling competition in Detroit. Just now, you used 2 fingers to flatten the iron pipe. I didn't deliberately think about it before, but now I want to know. How is it that your hand doesn't look particularly strong, but it can completely suppress those monstrous men in arm wrestling? Why is the strength in your hand so great? Chun Guang gradually began to panic. So, be my lab rat. Your body must be different from an ordinary person's. I even suspect that compared to ordinary people, you're superior from the genetic level. If you really want to help me, let me study you. The more Tang Ying spoke, the brighter the light in her eyes became. Step by step, she approached Chun Guang, forcing him to retreat into a corner. Her eyes were like those of a hungry wolf that had spotted its prey. They were even brighter than the LED lights on the roof. You want to slice me up? Chun Guang swallowed his saliva, his intestines turning green with regret. Chapter 948. His brain must have short-circuited. How could he not have thought of this? Perhaps there were at least tens of millions of people who wanted to study him. The number of people in official scientific research institutions could probably form a line from the East Gate to the West Gate of the five capitals. It was only because of his identity in the past, as well as the tragedy of Su Lijing, who had a high position in the academic world, and perhaps some old man's obstruction, that such a thing had not happened to him so far. But Tang Ying was different. The most important thing was that they were very familiar with each other, and their relationship was not ordinary. Others did not dare to mention it, but she could. If someone else came to mention it, he could simply kick them away, but he could not do this to Tang Ying. She might have thought of this briefly in the past, but at that time, she was still focused on clinical work and did not think of changing to scientific research. On the other hand, she did not expose this matter, and she did not show too much of an unusual side. Now, she had finally discovered it. She had also reacted. Not only was she stronger than ordinary people, but she was also stronger than the internal force martial artists who were already beyond ordinary people. This was terrible. She did not know how to make friends. What nonsense are you thinking about? How could I bear to cut you up? It's not like I'm a fool to do such a thing. Then what do you want? Just give me a sample of your body regularly. Stab me every once in a while? Do you have to be so hardcore? Nonsense. Some things are more convenient to extract genes than muscles. It's not that uncomfortable, and it will be over with a close eye. Don't say it so lightly, right? With my many years of experience, even if I can only decipher the mystery of your genes that are superior to ordinary people's, it is enough to let human evolution to a new level. I even feel that you represent another stage in the evolution of mankind. Admit it, didn't you already know? I remember you once told me about God. You already had this feeling at that time, right? But from a scientific perspective, the so-called God actually refers to another type of person who is more powerful than ordinary people, like our country's legendary figures like Fuxi, Xian Yuan, and Qiyu. You don't seem to care about what I think at all. The more Chun Guang listened, the more shocked he became. At this moment, Tang Ying reminded him of another person who had died, but was still alive, Nicosi Typal. In a sense, Tang Ying and Nicole were actually quite similar. They were both mad scientists. These kinds of people looked no different from ordinary people under normal circumstances, but once their thoughts were completely opened up, they would immediately reveal their differences from ordinary people. They had extremely terrifying logical reasoning and analysis abilities. They could often find the entry point that ordinary people couldn't comprehend from the small details and emit unimaginable ideas. This train of thought seemed absurd at times, but it was extremely logical. Great scientific achievements often came from a sudden idea after a long period of preparation, just like Newton's discovery of gravity. At this moment, Tang Ying seemed to be making wild guesses, but many of her deductions were on point. So what are you planning to do? Please give me a definite answer. I'm really scared. Didn't I already say that? I want to study your genes. Can I refuse? Then I'll die in front of you. Don't be like this. Do you want my blood or my flesh? Or should I give you a few strands of my hair? If it doesn't hurt, I don't particularly mind. For the sake of our relationship, anything can be discussed. Hair won't do. Although I can extract part of the genes, it's still the stratum corneum after all. It's not representative. Can you stop keeping me in suspense? Just give me a quick death. Tang Ying finally used her chest to push Chun Guang hard against the wall. Her hand slowly moved downwards. Her face was red, but it wasn't a red of shyness. Instead, it was a flush of excitement and ecstasy, like Columbus who discovered a new continent. She seemed to be talking to herself, but also seemed to be answering Chun Guang's question. I was really stupid in the past. Why didn't I think of this earlier? Actually, I've already extracted a few samples from your body, but at that time, I didn't even realize it. What a waste of resources. As soon as her voice fell, Chun Guang's body stiffened. A certain part of him was pinched. He finally understood. After all this time, she had her eyes on his countless monkeys and grandchildren, My sister is amazing. Why didn't you say so earlier? You really scared this baby to death. Be reasonable, this can be done. I think so too. So, I'm suddenly interested in honoring the bet. Can you not be so realistic? There's no other way. I'm just that realistic. Are you interested now? Chun Guang realized that he had really been tortured tonight. Originally, when he first came here, his heart was in turmoil. Then he met Wu Tong. When he heard that Wu Tong was injured, his heart calmed down. Then he saw that Wu Tong's injury wasn't too serious. Between Tang Ying and Wu Tong, one was a wounded soldier, and the other was a battlefield doctor. Coupled with the spring scenery in the mirror, his calm heart started to move again. Later, he planned to use the excuse of sending Wu Tong home to have some fun. But in the end, she ran away with her father. Later, he was shocked by the ambitious Tang Ying. Ashamed of his inferiority, he activated his saint mode. In the end, it didn't take long for him to become a saint again. After so many twists and turns, he still had to have sex today. Damn it. Fortunately, this old man's mind and physical body have been tempered to be as strong as iron. If it was an ordinary person, they would have collapsed to the point where their eyes would have turned black after being tossed around in such a short period of time. 5 minutes later. Are we going to start now? Okay. 10 minutes later. Are you trying to break my ribs? Can you be more precise? I think I need some Vaseline. Give me a moment. Half an hour later. Can you cooperate a little? The heat from the friction is about to ignite. You can't blame me. It's not like you don't know how good I am. Forget it. I have a little movie here. Let's cooperate. An hour passed. I can't take it anymore. Come on, I feel like it's almost done. 2 hours passed. I'll be damned if I believe you. Tang Ying glared at Chun Guang fiercely as she took out a test tube from her desk and placed it on her lower abdomen. She carefully rubbed the bank card on her body. I won't use this trick on you next time. So, are we going to do something more directly? You wish. I'll buy you a small electric motor. As Chun Guang continued to take advantage of the situation, he looked at Tang Ying. When she was done, she slapped Chun Guang's hand away and wiped her body with a napkin. She then dressed up and said, "All right, you're no longer of any value to me today. Go away. I won't be sleeping tonight. I have to deal with the sample tonight, or I'll only have 4 hours left. You know what I mean?" Huh? You're not going to shower? I'm busy. I'll go to the bathroom after I'm done. Bye. With that, she took the test tube and ran away. Chun Guang thought he would be able to sleep in Tang Ying's dormitory tonight. He never expected that she would really not go back to the dormitory. He waited in the dormitory for more than 10 minutes. When Chun Guang called her again, she was already at the cold storage of Gokyo University's old campus. Well, Chun Guang packed his belongings and left. His heart ached so much that he couldn't breathe. He used to think he knew her well enough, but she had 1,000 faces. She was like a completely different person when she was at work and in life. But on second thought, it wasn't hard to understand. If she didn't have the spirit to study without distractions, how could she have gotten a PhD from Morelands University at the age of 26? In fact, a long time ago, Chun Guang had thought that he would eventually encounter a situation where people wanted to study him. After all, he had always been high profile. He had repeatedly displayed too many talents that surpassed his generation and race. But as his status rose, he gradually stopped worrying about such things. As long as he was unwilling, no one in this world could force him, not even the emperor himself. But he didn't expect that a thief in the house would be hard to guard against. Sister Tang Ying, who was on his side, was actually a mad scientist deep down. Moreover, her specialty matched his. Perhaps this was fate. From the first time he picked her up outside a bar, when he was still on the internet, this day was destined. Forget it, let her study him. Anyway, he didn't suffer too much. Even if she really cracked some of the mysteries at the genetic level of his body, it was in fact the most basic body function among the countless skills and abilities provided by the heavenly Holy Grail. This didn't affect him being ahead of the human race and the times. It was an honor to be the cornerstone for her to realize her dream. Perhaps, years later, because of his great and generous contribution, mankind would truly achieve a leap in evolution and march out of Earth and into the universe. As the greatest lab rat in history, he would also leave a deep mark in the history of mankind together with Tang Ying. He would certainly be remembered by history and engraved on a monument. This might become the greatest sperm donation in human history. Sitting in the phaeton, Chen Guang's face was shining with the same brilliance as Tang Ying's. "I'm really great. Ahem." In the next few days, Chen Guang didn't run around anymore. Instead, he was a good student at school for a few days. In between, he visited Wu Tong. In the end, the elder sister had only been lying at home for less than 2 days before she was brought to her director's office. Because something had happened, and it was a big deal. She was a little anxious. The thief she caught the day before yesterday had stopped breathing without any warning in the detention center. Although the whole process of the case had been recorded, which was enough to prove the innocence of the branch office, there was still some negative impact after all. Wu Tong also felt very innocent. During the whole process, she didn't even punch the thief once. During the examination at the hospital, there was no abnormality in the thief's body. When he was detained, he was also served well, and there was no violation of any rules. According to the autopsy report, the cause of this person's death was due to overwork and the sudden functional exhaustion of the organs. On one hand, Wu Tong was busy providing evidence to prove the innocence of the law enforcement officers, and on the other hand, she had to deal with the influence of public opinion. So, even though her injury had not fully recovered, she could only go to work with it. Chen Guang couldn't help much in this matter. As for Tang Ying, she was completely in a state of work. Less than 3 days after taking samples from Chen Guang, she crossed the ocean and went abroad. Her plan to start a research institute was officially put on the agenda, and no one could stop it. Chapter 949. As for Chen Guang himself, things were still going according to plan. Although time was tight, the experienced Tianguang manager handled things in an orderly manner. Apart from the fact that the male lead had not read the script nor participated in the rehearsals so far, Director Yang, she had to personally act as the male lead during the rehearsals to temporarily cooperate with the rehearsals. There was no other problem. The warm-up of the play on the internet was almost over. Just like in the past, the people who supported him and those who dissed him were divided into 2 groups. There was also the neutral group who had nothing to do with it and were enjoying the show. In short, it was boiling. Nowadays, Chen Guangshou never worried about attention and popularity. He had already walked further and further on the path of a phenomenal, controversial figure. Once he set out, there would be no turning back. Unlike other celebrities, after becoming famous, they would gradually cherish their feathers and try their best to get away from all kinds of disputes and criticism. However, the almighty Superman did not do so. Feathers? What was that? Why should he cherish them? This young man, who had appeared out of nowhere, was like a meteor spinning in the sky, a path of sparks and lightning, tossing and turning, never stopping. He never seemed to know how to restrain himself. He always liked to challenge things that others thought were impossible. Every time he fell silent for a short time, it seemed to mean that he would explode again. Every time he erupted, it was enough to shock everyone's eyeballs out of their sockets. Sorry, he was never interested in things that followed the rules. As long as he made a move, it would definitely be a big move that defied common sense. Even his die-hard fans, while stubbornly supporting him, would secretly have doubts in their hearts, worrying about whether he could really do it. But the more worried they were, when he really did something incredible, the more shocked they were. The feeling of seeing the person they liked and admired once again overturning common sense and standing at the peak of the domain that he wanted to stand at was even stronger, making people's hearts beat faster and their blood boil. He made many people understand that in this world, many things that seemed impossible could actually be turned into reality. He even became the hope in many people's hearts. For example, when Chen Guang participated in the World Language Conference, a patient with lower limbs paralysis secretly made up his mind that if Chen Guang won the championship, he would try to walk again. If he tried again, perhaps his nerves would recover. In the end, Chen Guang succeeded, and the patient stood up on his own with tears brimming in his eyes. There was also a businessman who had lost all hope after his business failed. He sat on the balcony of a 28-story building and watched Chen Guang's live stream in the World Arm Wrestling competition. Finally, he gave up the idea of committing suicide and decided to face his fate bravely. The heavy debts he had on him were just like those huge men defeated by the thin Chen Guang. Although they looked strong, they were not invincible. There were actually quite a number of such people. Although many people were unwilling to admit it, Chen Guang had been using his seemingly absurd but actually surpassing absurd challenges to change the world bit by bit. As for the haters and haters who didn't like him, whenever he made a move, they would temporarily forget the past embarrassment and bite the bullet to slander him online or in real life. Even if they had been led into the ditch by him again and again, they would repeatedly tell themselves not to jump to conclusions easily in the future. But when this guy jumped out again and again, looking at what he was going to do, and then using their self-proclaimed rational brain to judge, they couldn't help but question him subconsciously. It was precisely because of Chen Guang's complicated character that those who liked him even more because he didn't disappoint them time and time again. At the same time, those who hated him had no choice but to change their inclinations and like him. Of course, the most stubborn haters would gradually change from dislike to hatred because they lost face again and again and become even more stubborn. But there was an old saying that a mediocre person who was not hated by others. Since embarking on the road of becoming a celebrity, Chen Guang didn't expect himself to please everyone. No one could be liked by everyone, let alone a flamboyant, new internet celebrity like Chen Guang. It didn't matter if others liked him or hated him, said good things about him online, or changed different ways to slander him. If he could control them, he would control them a little. If he couldn't, he just let them be. Anyway, it was all about popularity. Being controversial was a torture and test for ordinary people. But for him, who had long been trained to have a big heart and strong nerves, it could save him a lot of investment in publicity. Because of this, although there wasn't much investment in publicity for this play, it still caused quite a stir. In particular, some rumors came from some places, which made this matter even more mysterious. It was said that the male lead, Chen Guang, hadn't been seen in several rehearsals. Instead, the young director, Yang Shi, had rehearsed in place of him. When the other leading actors raised doubts, Yang Shi, who had a good reputation in the industry, not only didn't grab his male lead back, but he also told the others not to ask too much and not to worry needlessly. No one knew how much money Yang Shi had received from Chen Guang. He actually didn't care about his face and reputation. It was estimated that he could at least buy a suite in Yanjing's second ring road. If you, Chen Guang, are really busy, then we can just forget about it. But it was said that during this time, he actually didn't care about the play and stayed in school like an ordinary student. Moreover, someone found the printed script that Yang Shi had prepared for Chen Guang in his office. This meant that the male lead hadn't even read the script from beginning to end. Yes, you invited us to perform in the play, and the remuneration is almost 5 times the market price. It's so high that it's impossible to refuse. But all the other professional actors and main producers are working hard to rehearse, and you, an unconventional male lead, actually don't care about it and become a student? You're messing with us. Of course, although almost all the main actors were dissatisfied, the remuneration was high, and the breach of contract was also high. They couldn't bear the cost of breaking the contract easily. Secondly, although Chen Guang was only a newcomer in the entertainment industry, some channels, both overt and covert, showed that he had power and influence beyond ordinary people's imagination. Although many people had the idea of refusing to perform, in the end they endured it. Forget it, a lifetime of fame will be ruined this time. I'll just treat it as accompanying the prince to study. I'll just play with him. Don't other professional singers sing on stage with President Chong from the Chinda group from time to time? Although this matter was a bit disgusting, it was over with a pinch. But in the end, there were still people who were dissatisfied. Although they didn't show it on the surface, they couldn't help but say it secretly outside. In fact, Yang Shi was also quite helpless. Although he knew Chen Guang's ability, he also felt that not reading the script from beginning to end was a bit strange. In private, he had told Chen Guang many times, but Chen Guang just didn't listen. He was determined not to cooperate, and he even said, "Don't panic, the sky won't fall. Even if it does, I'll be able to hold it for you." In the end, Yang Shi seemed to have no way to deal with this person and could only let him do as he pleased. He also knew that the rumors that were spreading outside were actually spread by the internal staff of the production team. He asked Chen Guang if he wanted to rectify the internal situation and find out who was the one who didn't keep their mouth shut and had no professionalism. In the end, Chen Guang didn't care and said that he would let it be and not investigate the matter. At that time, the conversation between the two went like this. "Chen Guang, this isn't good for your reputation, right? It doesn't matter. It's meaningless to say so much before going on stage. Whether it's a donkey or a horse, we'll see in a minute. I understand the logic, but can you come over and take the script I printed back to have a look?" "No need. My memory is very strong. I'll just read it once before going on stage. Also, if there are many people in the production team who are scolding me, don't hide it. You can complain about me as much as you want on the set. It'd be best if I can see you complaining outside tomorrow. That would be even better. I slightly regret coming here this time. Recently, my peers in the circle have already spread the word that I'm a laughingstock. Director Deng also called to scold me, saying that I didn't properly lead the show for you, but instead accompanied you to mess around. I had a quibble with him that I wanted to use the play to train you and barely muddle through. However, he was worried that if the show failed, it would cause your reputation to explode. At that time, the box office might also be affected. Okay, Brother Yang, let me ask you one thing. Do you trust my acting skills? If I go on stage, do you think I'll mess up?" On the other side of the phone, Yang Shi pondered for a moment. In his mind, he recalled the former boxing champion Ali and said, "As long as you can remember your lines, there won't be a problem. That's it. I have to go to class. Let's talk later." I'm hanging up. This was the longest conversation the two had ever had over the phone about the play. As a result, from that day onwards, the grapevine began to spread even more news. The play director, Yang Shi, who had been helping the male lead, Chen Guang, finally exploded. He flew into a rage on the set, smashed the script, smashed the phone, and kicked the table. Chen Guang asked him to complain a little, but Yang Shi forced himself to add scenes. He was also a little cautious. If he really messed up, others could at least see that he tried to save something. However, he couldn't stand that Master Chen Guang was too difficult to please. "Brother Guang, we're friends, but you have to leave me a way out." Not to mention, Yang Shi's acting was very effective. Young director Yang Shi lost his temper. "I've never seen such an absurd actor. All main creators pay 5 times the price." Nouveau reached Chen Guang's artistic path. Shameless internet celebrity digs into the classic, tarnishing art with money. The male lead of Thunderstorm, who doesn't rehearse or read the script. He has lost his bottom line to hype up. Famous director. "If Chen Guang messes up Thunderstorm, I will call on the famous directors in the industry to boycott him." Internet celebrity nouveau riche, surpassing the existence of young male idols. Similar news spread like wildfire on the internet, like an unrestrained zebra. Chapter 950. This time, it's different from the past when Chen Guang was being protected by the old men in the dark. But it's different now. He had resigned and was no longer the director of the Guangding General Administration. He had also clearly expressed that he had no interest in the officialdom. The elders had dealt with the father and son of the Chao family as he wished, and Chao Zhengming had even become a deranged person. However, because of this, the two sides had become estranged, and he seemed extremely unruly and difficult to control. His integrity and stubbornness were a double-edged sword. It made people not need to be too wary of him, but at the same time, they could not put too much hope in him. When he said those words in the conference room, the disdain in his words, the contempt in his eyes, and the sympathy and disdain he had for those who were deeply mired in the mire, the old men could see it clearly and understand his attitude. Just as he said, he would never become the same kind of person as them. His words made many elders angry. They felt that they had been humiliated, but everyone also knew that in a certain sense, Chen Guang's choice was also reasonable. These people had heavy responsibilities. For so many years, they had had a bright and dark past. They had carried this bloated and huge country on their shoulders. Perhaps because of some selfish family interests, it was not easy for them to stagger through the swamp to this day. Although they were now in high positions, they were not happy. Many of them even had a past that they were not willing to face. This was a precious life experience, but it was inevitable that it was painful, although no one regretted it, because they did not think that others could do better than them. The blood on their hands and the promises they had broken in their hearts were all responsibilities that had to be borne to reach this position. They felt that they might not be great, but looking at the current situation in Huaxia, they did not disgrace the ideals in their hearts. Although society was still unfair, and many people felt that the moon in foreign countries was especially round, in the end, it was almost to the point where everyone had clothes to wear and food to eat. Although many things and people had not been honorable enough, their conscience was clear. However, they could not deny Qingguang's choice. It might be a better and brighter path. Compared to her, Qingguang lived a more open life. He didn't have to hide so much filth in his heart. Perhaps if time could be reversed and they were given a second chance to choose when they were young, they might be more willing to live like Qingguang. Since they couldn't change his personality and they couldn't drag him down this path, the elders didn't have the intention to continue to train him in the direction they wanted. In short, Qingguang had no possibility of entering politics in the future, so his personal image was not that important. So now, Qingguang had completely become a wild wolf that was allowed to roam freely. He could do whatever he wanted. Even if others slandered him, the old man would not take the initiative to help him clean up the mess. As for Qingguang himself, he deliberately let the public opinion on the internet ferment as it pleased. Even when Yuhong asked him if he wanted to think of a way, he not only did not try to clear his name, but he also asked Yuhong to take the initiative to pay more people to criticize him for acting in a drama. The more people scolded, the better. The more hatred they could attract, the better. Whoever wrote the most beautiful article would be able to make others gnash their teeth in anger. Qingguang would even add money as a bonus. Qingguang had absolute confidence in his acting skills. He did not believe that he would mess up Thunderstorm at all. At least, that was what he thought until he opened the script for the first time. He had played this kind of trick more than once, and it was always the same. He first suppressed it, then raised it. Now, the more people criticized him, the more waves he would cause. On the other side, Tianguang Media was almost done by Yuhong. The official registration was successful, and Lu Xiaoliang's acquisition of the IP was also in progress. Rao Jinghai, who was prepared to spend a lot of money, was having a headache, but the financing was still going well. In about a month's time, the newly registered Tianguang Media's financing and acquisition of shares would be officially unveiled. Time passed by unknowingly. It was already the end of the second week. At 7 o'clock that night, the drama was about to officially go on stage. Qingguang, the male lead, finally arrived at the theater 4 hours earlier than usual. Other than Yang Shi, the other main cast members were basically in a state of explosion. You're finally willing to come here. We almost thought that the male lead was the director himself. But there were only 4 hours left before the performance. What's the use of coming now? You might as well not come at all, and just let director Yang do it himself. At least he can complete the whole scene. Yang Shi braced himself and brought Qingguang in front of the main cast members. He felt like he was about to be ignited by the questioning gazes below. Well, let me introduce everyone. This is the manager of Tianguang Media, Mr. Chun, also known as the almighty superhuman Qingguang. Yang Shi swallowed his saliva, feeling quite stifled. You guys might not believe it, but I'm going on stage in 4 hours. How can I still be so calm and introduce the male lead to the other main cast members? Qingguang waved his hand calmly and chuckled. Hi, everyone. I'm the main cast member of Thunderstorm, Qingguang. The other 20 to 30 main cast members below the stage replied weakly. Hello, Mr. Chun. Everyone called him Mr. Chun, and no one called him by his name. It looked like they were respecting him, but in fact, it was because no one really treated him as an actor. You say you're the main cast, Chen Guang, but in our eyes, you're just a rich and capricious boss, Mr. Chun. Chen Guang was well aware of this, but he wasn't bothered by it. Looking at his watch, he said, "It's 3 p.m. right now, and there's only 4 hours left until the stage. Everyone, make your preparations. I have high hopes for this play." The moment he said that, everyone was stunned. You have the cheek to say that? You have high hopes for this play? You have high hopes that you've never attended rehearsals or read the script. You also know that there are only 4 hours left, but you still force yourself to come. You still have the cheek to lecture us? If it wasn't for your irresistible offer of 5 times the salary, we would have spat on you a long time ago. I've never seen such a shameless person. Finally, someone couldn't take it anymore. A young actress with delicate features, dressed in a plain-made costume, coughed violently and said, "Mr. Chun, I want to ask you a question." The moment she said that, the other actors' expressions changed. They knew she was going to make things difficult for them. Those who were unfamiliar with her didn't say a word and just waited to watch the show. Those who were close to her gave her looks, telling her not to stir up trouble at this time and not to cause trouble for herself. She had already held her nose for so long, she couldn't still wet the bed in the morning. Another middle-aged actress who was close to her, Yin Fei, who played the important role of Fan Yi, immediately tugged at her clothes and said, "Xiao Lu, don't mess around. Have you forgotten what I told you last night?" Shilu turned around and glanced at Yin Fei. "Sister Yin Fei, I understand, but I just can't take this lying down." Sayu, Yin Fei didn't know what to say. Last night, when the two of them finished rehearsals and went out for supper, Shilu was full of complaints about Chen Guang and even wanted to give up the chance to perform. At that time, Yin Fei tried to persuade her. Although the male lead was very unreliable, a normal play wouldn't be able to achieve the impact of Thunderstorm. There were countless eyes all over the country waiting for it. When the time came, it didn't matter how bad Chen Guang's acting was. Although it might affect their acting standards and condition, with him as a foil, wouldn't it reflect the high standards of these professional actors? I know you don't need money and don't care about his 5 times salary and compensation. But although you have some connections in the industry, you're still a newcomer. Participating in such a high-profile show is good for your development. At most, don't treat this play as an art performance. Treat it as a reality show. At that time, Shilu was reluctantly persuaded by Yin Fei, but she was still young and impetuous. Today, she was like a barrel of gunpowder. On the other side, Chen Guang had already turned his gaze over and looked straight at the girl. "Oh, what's the problem?" Shilu took a step forward. "President Chen, do you know the name of the character you're going to play?" Hearing this, Yangxi's expression changed slightly. He stepped forward and interrupted. "Shilu, don't joke around. Chen Guang carried it before." Chen Guang answered straightforwardly. "I don't know. F***CK. Yangxi was dumbfounded. "I was just about to wash the floor for you. You turned around and peed on the floor. Can't we talk properly? How do you want me to wash it for you? This time, it's even healthier. I can't even wash it." You. Shilu pointed at Chen Guang. Her hands were trembling and her lips were trembling. She couldn't speak for a long time. She didn't expect that Chen Guang would dare to admit it. "You don't even know the name of the character you're going to play. And we thought that even if you didn't come to rehearse, you would have at least read the script in private. If you didn't say it yourself, we wouldn't have dared to accept this reality. Can a person really be so unreliable?" She was so angry that her eyes were wide open. Her originally fair face had turned bright red because of her anger. The other main cast members also felt their hearts skip a beat. "This is so infuriating. We might be acting in a fake drama." Despair. All right. Yin Fei didn't want to persuade Shilu anymore. She also wanted to see what the most deceitful male lead in history could do. "So what did you mean by reminding us that we only have 4 hours to go on stage? What do you mean by placing high hopes on us? Are you trying to make all of us into a joke?" "Chen Guang, what's going on in your head? Have you lost your mind?" Shilu took a step forward and glared at Chen Guang. She felt that there was a ball of fire burning in her chest. She had too much resentment to vent. Chen Guang shrugged. "Didn't I just say that I'm taking this matter very seriously? I take this very seriously. All right, stop fooling around. I have to go look at the script. You guys hurry up and go through it. After saying that, he wanted to leave again. The old man didn't have the time and energy to care about everyone's feelings. Time was a little tight. Rather than wasting my breath here, I might as well go read the script. If I had to painstakingly explain myself to every single person who didn't believe in my abilities, then I would tire myself to death. Shilu was so angry that she laughed. She turned to look at Yang Shi. Senior, Director Yang, look at how sloppy he is. Back then, I only came here because of you. How dare he act like this? Yang Shi waved his hands. He didn't have the pretentious aura he had in the past 2 days. He forcefully defended himself. Shilu, don't get too worked up. The situation isn't that bad. Chen Guang is really the most talented actor I've ever seen. He's a natural actor. All right, stop fooling around. Shilu turned to look at the others and steeled her heart. Do you think I'm fooling around? I just don't want my dreams to be humiliated. He's insulting the performing arts. Forget it. I'm not acting anymore. After saying that, she turned to walk out. After taking 2 steps, Yinfei hurriedly pulled her back. Shilu turned back to look at Qingguang. She gritted her teeth. Isn't it just a penalty fee? I'll pay. Others might be afraid of you, Qingguang, but I'm not. I used to have some hope in you, but now I feel like a joke. Goodbye. Shilu broke free from Yinfei's grip and walked out. Xiaolu, don't be like this. Yinfei still wanted to stop her. Shilu struggled a bit more and finally managed to escape. It was less than 4 hours before she went on stage. One of the female leads, Shilu, wanted to stop acting. Chapter 9:51. The other veteran actor, Hu Delin, who played the role of Zhou Pun, also looked at Yang Shi with a bitter face, then turned to chase after Shilu. Hu Delin and Yang Shi were good friends. Previously, Yang Shi knew that Shilu had a bad temper, so he asked Hu Delin to help mediate. On the other hand, Hu Delin had a good relationship with Shilu's uncle, the famous director Shi Changhe. Before coming here, Shi Changhe had asked him to help take care of his stubborn but talented niece, so Hu Delin couldn't turn a blind eye to her. That was how it was in the entertainment circle. It was okay if you had a little temper and a little willfulness, but you couldn't offend people too much. No matter how much Chen Guang went overboard, the contract was signed in black and white, and Chen Guang wasn't a small figure who could be casually manipulated. He was the boss of Tianguang Agency, and even Lu Chao of Lusher culture didn't dare to offend him. He was a figure who had used countless lawyers' letters to make many daring media tremble. He was also the hidden 2nd or 3rd generation who had a mysterious force to protect him when he was being badly defamed. It was so much so that there were people who analyzed that Jin Shuriwei, a relative of the entertainment circle with a powerful background, had repeatedly expressed interest in Chen Guang because the two of them were well matched in terms of social status. Otherwise, the grace that Chen Guang had received since his debut would be too grand. Chen Guang's background was too terrifying. No matter how good Shilu's reason was, or how unreliable Chen Guang's performance was, the highly anticipated show was about to start, and she couldn't just stop acting. She felt comfortable for a moment, but there would be endless troubles in the future. As an artist, as long as they were involved in a dispute, no matter who was right or wrong, or who won or lost in the end, it would be a scandal for no one. Chen Guang was already full of black marks. Even if he made a scene, it seemed that it was nothing. But Shilu, a young girl who had just debuted, couldn't bear such a torment, and Hu Delin couldn't stay out of it. Yang Shixin caught up to Hu Delin in a few steps. Old Hu, please help me hold on. Hu Delin quickly chased after her while nodding. No problem, leave it to me. Xiao Lu's temper is a little bad, but in fact, it's because she values this opportunity very much. It won't be a problem to have a good talk. When Hu Delin was about to leave, he glanced at Chen Guang again. Even though he was a good-natured person, he was a little angry. Returning to Chen Guang's side, Yang Shi looked at the others. He couldn't come up with an idea for a while. After thinking for a while, he said, Okay, everyone go and rest first. Hurry up and review the script. It's okay, tonight's scene will definitely come out. If Xiao Lu really doesn't come back, I'll just put on makeup and go sing the 4 Phoenixes. Chen Guang said, "It's fine. I'll do it. I can act too. It's dirty." This time, the other main creators didn't even bother to roll their eyes. They turned around and ran. They were really afraid that if they continued to stay beside this master, they would want to strangle him like Shi Lu. "My brother Guang, stop fooling around. What are we going to do this time? Why don't you go up and say some soft words to coax her? Shi Lu isn't a bad person. She just graduated and hasn't been in the entertainment industry much. She's a little arrogant. Her uncle is Shi Changhe, a friend of director Deng and also a famous director. You know, after all, she's a second-generation star. Just look at how things are going. If she really decides to quit the show, there's no one more suitable than her. Shi Lu is really quite talented. I was just saying those words out of anger. This is a drama, not a Beijing opera. How can a man go up and play the role of a woman as the Four Phoenixes?" When almost everyone left, She turned to look at Chen Guang with a bitter face and tried to persuade him. At the last moment, Shi Lu, who was playing the important role of the Four Phoenixes, actually wanted to quit in public. As the director, he had a big headache. He looked at Chen Guang with pleading eyes, hoping that this big brother could help him a little. "I know you're capable, but others don't. Let's put away our supernatural powers first. Okay?" Chen Guang also hesitated for a moment. Actually, he could quite understand the anger of this little girl named Shi Lu. But in the end, he didn't say anything. Instead, he patted Shi on the shoulder and said, "Brother Yang, don't worry. She won't be able to leave." Shi was stunned. "Why?" Chen Guang chuckled. "No reason. Her acting is pretty good, but Monkey Sun can't escape the palm of Buddha's hand. I'm 100% sure that she won't leave." Shi's face was blank, but Chen Guang had already turned around to leave. He said, "Brother Yang, I'll leave her to you. I really have to go read the script. Give me 3 hours. I'll memorize the lines of the Four Phoenixes and the original male lead." Just as Chen Guang and Shi said, he was sure that Shi Lu wouldn't really leave. The reason was very simple. Don't be fooled by her angry look. In fact, she had forced herself into this situation. But the moment she turned around to leave, her footsteps were slightly hesitant. In fact, she regretted it as soon as she turned around. This kind of small detail couldn't be noticed by others, but couldn't be hidden from Chen Guang's eyes. She turned around and walked away, as if nothing had happened. Shi and the other mature and charming actress, Yin Fei, followed her to persuade her, and she would definitely come back. Shi had no choice but to quickly say, "Brother Guang, don't forget. You have to memorize Zhou Ping's lines. You have to play Zhou Ping." Chen Guang turned around and was shocked. *MN. Where's the male lead? Why are they all female characters? Shi was about to cry. "My brother. Zhou Ping is a man. It's the eldest young master of the Zhou family." Oh, I know. In the next moment, Chen Guang disappeared without a trace. On the other side, after waiting for about 7 or 8 minutes, Shi Lu came back, surrounded by Yin Fei and Hu Delin. "Where's President Chen?" Hu Delin asked Shi, who was sitting in a chair dejectedly while winking at Shi Lu. Shi looked up and was overjoyed. He thought to himself, Chen Guang is really amazing. How can he know what Shi Lu is thinking? Is it possible that Chen Guang is as talented in dealing with women as he is in other aspects? He can see through a woman's real thoughts at a glance. The most powerful Casanova in history? That's possible. She turned to look at the other side. He's in the dressing room reading the script while doing his makeup. Yin Fei pulled Shi Lu aside. "Oh, okay. Let's go over." Shi Lu struggled. "I'm not going. I'm not wrong. He has just started reading the script. How much can he understand? Even if he really has a photographic memory and can memorize the lines, can he understand Zhou Ping's character? All right. Xiao Lu, have you forgotten what we agreed on? Why are you talking to an old friend again? Do I have to call your uncle?" Hu Delin shouted from the side. Shi Lu's face stiffened. She looked aggrieved and lowered her head. "Uncle Hu, I'm sorry. I understand." Hu Delin urged. "It's good that you understand. Before things get worse, you should at least apologize to Mr. Chen." Shi Lu pursed her lips and looked aggrieved. On the other side, Chen Guang was sitting on a chair, holding the script with both hands and reading it attentively. When he saw the script, he remembered that he had acted in Thunderstorm before. However, he had acted in a movie, which was different from a play. All in all, since he had acted before, it was easy for him to do so. This was within his original scope of work. Furthermore, ever since he had become a martial sage, his memory had indeed improved greatly. He could recite it without any difficulty. He flipped through the pages as though the wind was blowing, causing the makeup artist to roll her eyes. Shilu and a few others pushed the door open and entered. They saw Chun Guang straightening his back and flipping through the pages. He was so focused and serious. If he had read each page for less than 30 seconds, everyone would have believed that he was memorizing the script. Shilu suppressed her emotions and walked up to Chun Guang. "Mr. Chun, I'm sorry." With that, she bowed her head. Just like what everyone had told her, she had to bear with it until the matter was over. No matter how disgusted, or regretful she was, there was no point in continuing to make a fuss. No matter how much resentment she had, she would have to wait until after tonight. As long as she could endure the 3.5 hours on the stage and come down, she could scold him as much as she wanted. Even if she had offended him to the point of no return, she would still be able to stand her ground. "Look, this funny clown is so funny on the stage, but I'm still loyal to my contract and completed everything I had to do. It is a pity that I am not a god, and I do not have the ability to rely on my own strength to save this failed play. I admit that when I first took on this project, I said that I was doing it for the sake of Senior Yang Shi and Uncle Hu's matchmaking. However, I did not deny that I wanted to ride on his popularity. After all, everyone knew that as long as he was involved in a show, the ratings would be phenomenal. I admit that I was being petty, but no one could stop me from standing up to defend my art. I did not think that things would be so bad. This is the first painful lesson in my life, but I will remember it in the future. Even if Chun Guang really wants to ban me from now on, even if my uncle can't help me, I don't care. If this industry is so lousy, I will not work in this industry in the future. I will do something else." Uncle Hu said something very well just now. You can't blame others for mistakes that they haven't made yet. No matter how lousy Chun Guang is, he hasn't had the time to go on stage. No matter how dissatisfied he is, he can wait until he gets off the stage. Shilu looked straight at Chun Guang. At this moment, she felt that she was a great fighter who existed to uphold justice. It was because she wanted to uphold justice and defend the dignity of the performing arts that she lowered her head and apologized to Chun Guang for a short period of time. Now, it is like the darkness before dawn. Come on, laugh at me as much as you want, show off as much as you want. In the end, I still have to bow down to the power of the entertainment industry. I will firmly remember your ugly face in my heart. I will use my pen to record everything that happened today. I will let everyone understand how despicable you, Chun Guang, are. You, Chun Guang, are a nouveau riche who relied on money to break into the art industry. I will let you know the pain. I will let you pay the price. I will let you become a lesson for future generations. I will let other rich people think twice before they have such crooked thoughts in their minds. In this world, not everything can be bought with money, and not everything can be done just because you have money to gather a group of people to support you. There will always be people who will not suck up to your stinky feet. Chapter 952. Oh, it's okay. It's just a little friction. It's no big deal. I'm not that petty. I understand that you guys have a problem with me. If I were you, I wouldn't be happy either. However, there were some things that were more practical than explaining it once on stage, right? I don't want to ruin my own reputation. You guys might find it hard to understand why I'm like this, but I can tell you very seriously that I won't bring shame to your performance and the classic Thunderstorm. To everyone's surprise, Chun Guang, who was sitting on the chair, was extremely magnanimous. Not only did he not stab Shi Lu in the back, he didn't even raise his head to look at her. Instead, he continued to focus on the script. He didn't stop flipping through the pages, but his mouth was calm as he spoke. Even Hu Dellen and Yin Fei were a little confused. When they were persuading Shi Lu, they discussed how Chun Guang would react. They even emphasized to Shi Lu again and again that no matter how much he went overboard, she must bear with it and not intensify the conflict. After all, previous events showed that Chen Guang was a very narrow-minded person. After Shi Lu apologized, she steeled her heart and used her mind to block her ears. She made up her mind that no matter how much this guy went overboard, she would bear with it. But he was actually so magnanimous, like an old man easily forgiving a willful, naughty child. This feeling was so strange that it caught people off guard. At this moment, it was Yang Shi who reacted quickly and clapped his hands. All right. Since we're clear about this matter, then we won't waste any more time here. Chen Guang, you can look at the script first, and we'll go and have a look at the scene. Yang Shi signaled to Hu Delin and Yin Fei with his eyes, and the two of them took Shi Lu outside to smooth things over. From the beginning to the end, the makeup artist, who only cared about taking care of Chen Guang, looked on coldly from the sidelines. This makeup artist was part of the industry, and he was also one of the staff members behind the scenes of Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm. He was already familiar with the storm on the internet. Sigh, it's really pitiful to be a celebrity. They look glamorous on the outside, but they're actually very wronged in private. Just like Hu Delin, Yin Fei, and Shi Lu, the leading actors of the drama, they had a bit of fame, but in the end, they were dragged by Chen Guang to accompany the crown prince to study, and they even had to lower their heads in front of him. With the frequency at which he flipped through the book, would he be able to get into it? It would be strange if he could remember his lines. He's just putting on an act for you to see. Before you came in, he had already been rummaging for a few minutes. What the makeup artist didn't expect was that Chen Guang spent 2.5 hours in disguise. Boss Chen, aren't you getting too in a character? I'm just an inconspicuous makeup artist. What are you playing at? Are you putting on an act for me to see? Wait a minute. He couldn't have fallen for me, right? But I'm already in my 40s. Isn't that a little too old? Youngsters nowadays like mature types? But I'm a man. However, Chen Guang couldn't be bothered about what this crazy makeup artist was thinking. After his makeup was done, he changed his clothes and walked out. He changed into a Republic of China-style suit. Although there was something wrong with his brain, he had a pretty good makeup artist's finishing touch. It made him look a little more mature and less immature. He really did look like a young master from the Republic of China. When Chen Guang went outside, Yang Shi was pulling one main cast member after another to go through the key points of the play. Those who weren't checked by Yang Shi were lowering their heads and reading the script. Although everyone present had acted in Thunderstorm more than once, and they were still learning from the past, this was a 3.5-hour-long performance of 5 acts. If they forgot their lines halfway through, the effect of the performance would definitely be greatly reduced, even if they had a teleprompter hidden in their ears. Although not many people felt that they could last until the second act. Just like what Shi Lu thought, no matter how unreliable the male lead was, they would do their best and leave the rest to fate. Anyway, if something went wrong, it couldn't be their fault. The amount of people scolding Chen Guang online also reached its peak in the afternoon, especially the news that Shi Lu had stopped acting and was pulled back. No one knew who in the production team had secretly spread the news, but it poured oil on the fire. The situation was out of control. Mango TV, which had bought the live broadcast rights, even held an emergency meeting to discuss whether they should prepare 2 backup programs in advance. This was a national live broadcast. If they couldn't continue acting, they had to cut off the signal in time and change the program. If it was possible, it would be best to discuss with Tianguang's agent to see if they could adjust the license price of the live broadcast rights according to the broadcast time of the program. After all, if they spent a lot of money to buy the copyright only to be broadcast for less than 10 minutes, it would be too much. The manager of a certain business department of Mango TV, who was in charge of the operation, was scolded by the station's higher-ups. How could he be so stupid as to transfer the full amount in one go? Why didn't he sign a floating clause when he signed the contract? The manager was so aggrieved that his eyes were filled with tears. That wasn't what you said when you asked me to talk to you. At that time, you said that I must get it at all costs. Our satellite TV has already lost step by step in the competition. This is a rare opportunity. We must make a beautiful comeback. All of you clearly agreed to the terms, but now you want me to be the scapegoat? He braced himself and looked for the manager of Tianguang's business department, Fang Tianyu. to discuss changing the contract. In the end, the other party's reply was only 2 words. Her. What was worse was that he had offended someone. Fong Tianyu had perfectly implemented Chun Guang's principle of being a person. He must not be at a disadvantage. At that time, Fong Tianyu's original words were like this. I've long heard that your station is famous for changing your mind at the last minute. I didn't believe it, but now I believe it. Yo, are you bullying us because of your big business? Where did your spirit of the contract go? Changing a good contract just like that? Do you think we're pushovers? Come on, I know you have your difficulties, but you guys are a little too dishonest in this matter. Let me tell you, if you only call me, if CEO Chan finds out about your station's intentions, in the future when your station broadcasts news simulcast, if there are any scenes of CEO Chun, all of you will have to censor it. Director Chun can turn your station into a parallel universe's Mango TV. Do you understand? Then Fong Tianyu hung up the phone. Lu Xiaoyang, who had just rushed back, asked nervously, Old Fong, can we handle it by acting so pretentiously? Fong Tianyu patted Lu Xiaoyang on the shoulder. Old Lu, we're feeling bitter. If I wasn't so strong-willed, those people who signed the contract with us would have turned into hungry wolves and bitten me to death. As Fong Tianyu said that, his sharp eyes saw a familiar figure appear at the backstage entrance of the theater. Damn, Director Chong from Bamboo is here. I'll hide for a while. This is Director Chin's acquaintance. I can't get hard. This Director Chong was naturally Brother Little Chong. Hey, Manager Fong, don't hide. I'm not here to cause trouble. Little Chong's sharp eyes quickly chased after him. Fong Tianyu patted his chest. Director Chong, next time you should inform me first. You scare me to death. You don't know, but recently I have to go to the basement to go home. People are blocking my way. That's because those people have no foresight. They don't believe in Brother Guang's ability. I have full confidence in him. Manager Fong, just follow Brother Guang's example and blacklist those sponsors and broadcasters who have been causing trouble recently. They'll regret it later. Chang Xiaozong was indeed someone who had followed Qin Guang and made a name for himself. He was very confident. Fong Tianyu sighed. How can we blacklist a salesperson? We can't have enemies forever. We can only have profits forever. Manager Fong, I think you're a good person. You're a talent. Come and work at Bamboo. I don't dare. I'm afraid Director Chun will strangle me to death. On the other side, Yang was still acting seriously. Everyone, keep your spirits up. Go through your scenes in your head. Uncle Hu, adjust your collar. Zhou Puyuan is someone who cares a lot about appearance. Yes. Sister Yin Fei is indeed experienced. That's how Fan Yi should be. There's a hint of charm in her eyes, but not too much. Unknowingly, everyone's emotions were stirred up by Yang Shi. Thunderstorm, which was supposed to be on the verge of being overdone, suddenly became a huge mountain in everyone's heart. Everyone had the same thought. This was all because of the male lead who was flipping through the script from the beginning again. It was Chun Guang, who was going to play Zhou Ping. It was 6:30 p.m. in the evening. The small theater that could only accommodate a few hundred people was gradually filled up. From time to time, the main cast in the backstage would hear the hustle and bustle of people outside. When they turned to look at Qin Guang, who was still flipping through the script, they couldn't help but feel strange. No matter how much of a scammer he was, no one could deny his popularity. There weren't many people who could make a small theater play this popular. Moreover, this was a play that had already been performed countless times. It was almost impossible to perform anything new. It could only be compared to the classics and find all sorts of faults. In recent years, very few film crews would choose to act in Thunderstorm. Firstly, the Republic of China drama was a bit too old. The audience was tired of it. Secondly, it was strenuous and unrewarding. Everyone thought to themselves, perhaps our situation is not bad. Even if we can't be immortalized, we can at least be infamous for thousands of years. We can't perform the best thunderstorm, but at least we have a chance to perform the worst thunderstorm in history. This is also an achievement, right? Finally, under the gaze of tens of millions of TV and computer viewers, and under the gaze of hundreds of people in the small theater, the lights dimmed and the curtains on the stage slowly opened. The brown carved wooden door creaked open with a very historical and heavy creak. Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm was officially on stage. Chapter 953. The small theater was completely silent. Both the audience and the staff of Tianguang Agency were paying full attention to the stage. Even Big Beard Deng, who was thousands of miles away in Beijing, gave himself a rare holiday. He pulled a few of the production crew members to sit in front of the TV just to watch Chen Guang's drama, which had almost become a farce. He did not dare to pull the other main actors, for fear that Chen Guang's performance on the stage would make the other actors not want to continue filming, and they would quit. Big Beard Deng had a headache. He hoped that Chen Guang would learn to act well. If possible, it would be best to send him to the CCTV or Chinese drama school to sharpen his skills. But obviously, Chen Guang would not be so obedient. This young man, whose identity was getting more and more special, did not have the time and schedule. He seemed to be busier than a big director like him, but he was busy with something that ordinary people were not qualified to ask about. But I did not expect you to play it so big. You challenged the most difficult live drama the moment you came, and you even said it would be broadcasted to the whole country. Why don't you go to heaven? Why are you so daring? There were 100 actors who could act in front of the camera, but there were probably less than 10 who could complete the whole drama. Although drama actors were not famous, and their income might not be as high as movie stars, everyone knew that the drama stage was the real place to train people. Currently, the recognized acting school in the country, the old artists who were famous among the people, all had experience in drama. I say, Director Deng, I still feel unsure. Isn't that obvious? I'm not sure either. What if he messes up? It's one thing for him to lose his reputation, but what about our movie? We haven't even finished filming, and his reputation is already ruined. Can we replace him? Big Beard felt a headache coming on. Replace him? What a joke. This drama was originally tailor-made for Jiang Yage. If Chen Guang did not act, and Jiang Yage also quit, then who would take the role? The main cast has been completely replaced. Also, don't forget that Chen Guang, Jiang Yage, and Jin Shuriwei are the main investors in this movie. Qingdao Pictures only has 10% of the shares. That's right, we can't change our boss. Sighed Director Deng, it's been hard on you. It's fine. I was the one who chose him back then, so I admit it. All right, let's not talk about this for now. Let's watch the TV and see what Chen Guang can do. The plot of the play on TV had already begun to move forward. At the beginning of the prologue and the first act, Chen Guang did not have any scenes. Although the other actors on the stage were hastily prepared, they were still professional actors with high standards. Thus, they were able to act according to the rules. Assistant Yang's standard is getting better and better. I didn't expect him to be able to do this in less than a week. Jiang Yage, who was also in front of the TV, commented with great interest. Jin Shuriwei nodded and said, I just saw the news on the internet that Shi Lu, who plays the Four Phoenixes, lost her temper with Chen Guang in the afternoon. It looks like she has some real skills. Jiang Yage continued to comment, Hu Delan Zhou Puyuan is also quite good. He hasn't even shown his face yet, but those 2 lines are enough to make him look old-fashioned. Jin Shuriwei shook her head and said, I think Hu Delan is a bit too strong. I didn't expect the veteran actor to be a bit nervous. Jiang Yage threw a small tomato into her mouth and chewed it. She said in a muffled voice, It's all because of our dear Guang. You can't say that. Although they are acting well now, Thunderstorm is indeed a bit old. If it wasn't for Chen Guang, I'm afraid many people would have changed the channel. There wouldn't be so much attention. Jiang Yage snorted and said, I understand that, but it's not a good thing to have so much attention. It's also because we really can't make time. Otherwise, we would really be the ones to do it. I'm quite embarrassed to see these people bring so much trouble to him. Jin Shuriwei also blushed slightly. She thought to herself that she did feel a little sorry for them. In the small theater, the bald president, who was sitting among the crowd, yawned loudly. Seeing this, the vice president beside him muttered softly, It's a bit boring. Isn't that so? We have such a hardcore fan group, but only a few of us came. We don't have the prestige we used to have. Tui tui tui, fans my ass. You are the fans. I'm a hate fan of Chen Guang. The most determined hate fan of Chen Guang. Mr. President, can we accept our fate? Just admit it? Admit what? Admit that you're already a fan of Chen Guang. Isn't that what the internet is saying? Tui, I could be his fan. I can't wait to bite him to death. All right. The vice president really felt sorry for this stubborn president. Can we be a little more honest? As the prologue passed, the first act slowly progressed. Yang Shi, who was backstage, looked at his watch from time to time. He was getting more and more nervous. Chen Guang, are you ready? When Zhou Chong starts to talk about why he's still not married, you start to walk forward. Then, when Fanny starts to lower her head and murmur, who knows, you have to walk to the door. At that time, Zhou Chong will look back at you and say, hey, big brother is here. At that time, your scene will start. You must remember, when you're acting as Zhou Ping, you can't be like your usual majestic gait. You have to slow down a little. When you enter the door, you have to act very sleepy and yawn. Chen Guang tilted his head and looked at Yang Shi for a long time, not saying a word. Yang Shi suddenly paused, the corner of his mouth twitching. Sorry, I was a little too nervous and forgot. Why am I telling you all this? Bro, did you really remember the script? Chen Guang put down the notebook. Brother Yang, I really did. Really? If you keep talking nonsense, I'll have to hit you. Yang Shi shrunk his neck and dodged to the side. He secretly mocked himself. I'm in a mental block. Why am I explaining the script to him? As long as he can remember the script, he's a true master. Does he need to waste his breath on his understanding of the character? At this time, there's no point in continuing to ask him about this. Anyway, it's a knife to my head. I'll just leave the rest to him. At this time, Fan Yi's actor, Yin Fei, was working hard to maintain her performance on stage with Zhou Chong. Everyone knew that Chen Guang was about to come on stage. Perhaps, as soon as he got on stage and started to stutter, this show would be over, right? But there's no point in worrying about this now. I'll just take care of my own business first. Perhaps it was because of distracting thoughts in her mind. Yin Fei almost stuttered when she said her lines, causing Yang Shi, who was in the audience, to jump up and down in anxiety. What is Yin Fei doing? She's a veteran actor. How can she make such a mistake on stage? Sigh. Yang Shi felt a little regretful after only watching the first half of the opening. If he had known earlier, he would have suggested to Chen Guang to change the script. Forcing himself to challenge Thunderstorm was a bit too much. So far, the actors on stage had only performed average. They hadn't been able to perform anything special or innovative, which made him feel very disappointed. It was difficult to surpass a classic, not to mention that he didn't have much time left. He really didn't have the ability to rehearse over and over again, polishing and adjusting everyone's state to the state he wanted. The actors were also focused on stability on stage and didn't dare to have any off-topic performance. They didn't want to make any mistakes, but they didn't want to make any contributions. If this was just a small show on a small stage, their performance would still be above the standard. But this was a nationally broadcast play that received a lot of attention. Not to mention the people in the theater, there were countless people all over the country who were pointing at the screen and talking about it. For the past Chen Guang, mediocrity was failure. For the classic Thunderstorm, which had been brought to the stage time and time again, if it couldn't come up with something innovative, people would say that it was relying on its predecessor's legacy to cheat people's money. The more familiar a classic was, the easier it was to be compared. Once a comparison was made, people would nitpick. No matter how small a flaw was, it would be magnified infinitely in the eyes of others. Some were obviously very good improvisation and innovation, but it would also be covered up by others' preconceived impressions. Sigh, it's too late to regret now. Yang Shi was in a daze when Chen Guang, who was beside him, suddenly strode forward. Yang Shi was stunned at first, then suddenly came back to his senses. It was Chen Guang's turn. He was actually lost in thought. He hurriedly turned back to call the others. Make the best use of this last bit of time and think of a way to sculpt if he could. He pulled Hu Dellen, who was about to go on stage. Uncle Hu. Hu Dellen understood his thoughts in a second and waved his hands. Director Yang, don't count on me. I only have this little ability. I can't lead the others. In fact, a veteran actor like Hu Dellen could handle the situation at the critical moment, but he felt that he did not have the fighting spirit. Although he had been helping Yang Shi with Shilu's work, this was only his duty as a senior. He really did not have the determination to put his life on the line and forcefully lead the others, even at the risk of failing miserably in an easy task. Yang Shi sighed and turned to look in the direction of the stage. Chen Guang was about to enter. Zhou Chong and Fan were discussing why Zhou Ping was still not married. Up until now, Chen Guang hadn't said a word. He was also facing the stage with his face sideways. Yin Fei and Zhou Chong's actors couldn't even see his expression clearly. However, his simple steps had the feeling of anticipation in Yang Shi's heart, and even exceeded it. He portrayed the image of a dispirited young master of the Republic of China who was in low spirits and had a heavy heart. Others had no confidence in Chen Guang and couldn't understand the mood, but Yang Shi understood that Chen Guang was already in character. Yang Shi's breath stopped for a moment. It's coming. As long as Chen Guang can remember the lines, there won't be a problem. Yang Shi gripped the walkie-talkie in his hand tightly. If he forgot the lines, he would quickly remind him. Director Yang, Chen Guang's earphones. At this moment, the floor's supervisor walked up with a pale face, holding a pocket-sized bone conduction earphone in his hand. Yang Shi's face turned pale. Oh my God, this guy isn't wearing earphones. It's over. On the other side, Chen Guang raised his head slightly, opened his mouth, and raised his hand slightly, covering his mouth with his fair palm. Zhou Chong smiled stiffly. Brother. Actually, he should be smiling naturally. Zhou Chong was a very simple and upright person, and he had a very good relationship with his half-brother, Zhou Ping. Chen Guang looked up, his slightly hazy eyes regaining some clarity. He nodded slightly. You're here. That's the smell. Yang Shi listened to Chen Guang's slightly tired but intimate, "You're here," through the earphone. His heart almost stopped, and his breathing completely stopped. In a haze, he seemed to have returned to that coffee shop, watching Chen Guang transform into the angry Muhammad Ali, leaping in front of him like a butterfly. At this moment, he looked so natural, and he seemed to fit in with the surrounding folk style of the setting. Even his voice had changed, becoming a little low and hoarse. A simple greeting to his brother had imperceptibly played out Zhou Ping's many thoughts. Chapter 954. Hu Dellen's eyes widened as he glanced at the stage, then at the security camera behind him. What's going on? Why do I feel like he's blended in with his surroundings? Yang Shi didn't reply to Hu Dellen and continued to watch quietly. On the stage, Chen Guang's voice sounded. Suddenly, Yin Fei felt an inexplicable sense of resentment. Ping, she felt indignant. She felt that Zhou Ping was purposely avoiding her. She didn't even look at her when she came in and only cared about greeting Zhou Chong. Chen Guang turned to look at her. Oh, then he paused. His throat felt like it was stuffed with cotton, and he didn't know what to say. He lowered his head evasively. From the details in the security camera, Zhou Ping's gaze drifted slightly towards Zhou Chong. It was very subtle. All of this took a long time to describe, but it was a small detail that took less than 3 or 4 seconds. He shifted his feet slightly, pretending to shake off the non-existent dust on his shoes. Then he looked up at Fan Yi and said, "You're here too." Fan Yi's gaze drifted slightly towards Zhou Chong. After making sure that Zhou Chong wasn't looking at her, she looked up slightly and said, "I just came down." As she said this simple line, her gaze drifted, but she secretly gave Zhou Ping a sense of resentment. Her tone hid a coquettish pout that only lovers could understand. She seemed to be resentful. "Why are you avoiding me? Why do you want to leave?" It was a simple sentence, but it hid a lot of complicated things in the past. But at the same time, she had to be wary of Zhou Chong and not let him see through her. This desire to speak, full of hidden bitterness, this shameful act of stealing chickens and dogs, was all hidden in the words, "I just came downstairs." Chen Guang's body trembled slightly when he heard Fan Yi's words. His stiff movement was caught by the high-definition security camera, but it also happened to avoid Zhou Chong's attention. He deliberately turned his head and asked Zhou Chong, "Father didn't go out, did he?" Chen Guang purposely paused after the word father, as if to answer Fan Yi's complaint, to express his own confusion, and to warn Fan Yi. This was still a secret hidden between the two of them, a secret that only they could understand. But Zhou Cheng didn't seem to notice. He turned to look in the direction of the study before replying. No. Are you going to see him? Hu Delin, who was behind the scenes, was so excited that he couldn't speak. When a young man turned his head just now, there was no accent at the back. This is really a stroke of genius. Yang, she also said. Also, when Yin Fei said go downstairs earlier, that almost imperceptible tremble in her voice was simply too amazing. Director Yang, have you noticed that Yin Fei and the others are completely immersed in their roles? It's completely different from its previous state. Hu Delin said excitedly. We've been rehearsing for a few days, but she's never been so immersed in a role. Yang, she nodded. That's right. They're already in the middle of the movie and can't get out. He knew exactly what was going on. This was what was truly terrifying about Chen Guang. When he was immersed in the role, there would be an invisible realm with him as the center, completely enveloping the people and things around him. He could attach a layer of the soul of an era to lifeless scenes and props, and he could even make the people around him completely lose themselves. Their souls would involuntarily overlap with the character they were about to play, allowing the character's true self to completely overwhelm the actor's true self. This was probably what he meant by world-class acting. A world of its own. Yang, she had no idea how Chen Guang did it, but he was absolutely certain that it was the truth. Chen Guang never bragged, but when it came to acting, he was really amazing beyond imagination. Yang, she would never understand that Chen Guang was able to achieve such an achievement in acting because he had lived in the world of acting countless times and reached the highest realm that only others could achieve. He could use his seemingly subtle movements, his exquisite micro-expressions, and his small movements that were so vivid that people couldn't tell if it was a play or a real life, to control everything around him. His voice, which seemed to have a magical charm, and even the frequency of the vibration of his vocal cords, could completely merge himself with the role, and then ruthlessly extract the role from the story, turning it into real life and covering his stage. Yin Fei and Zhou Cheng's actors couldn't understand the secret behind it, but it didn't matter. The moment Chen Guang opened his mouth, they were pulled into the realm of world-class acting. They didn't realize it at all, but they had already lost themselves, as if they had been possessed by the character in the movie. This wasn't because of Chen Guang's terrifying hypnosis ability, but because actors like them were trying their best to act as someone else in their subconscious. What Chen Guang did was to use his world-class acting skills to influence others, to maximize the subconscious of the actors so that they could completely change from acting as someone else. While Yang, she was in a daze, Hu Delin, who was next to him, bowed his head and frowned. It wouldn't be long before it was his turn to go on stage. After witnessing Chen Guang's performance with his own eyes, Hu Delin, a veteran actor, had been unknowingly brought into the role. At this moment, he was no longer himself. He had become the mine owner Zhou, who was still annoyed and depressed by the recent strike in his own mind, and was also having a headache about his good-for-nothing eldest son. Yang Shi and Hu Delin weren't the only ones who were truly shocked. The eyes of the hundreds of people in the small theater, who had been yawning, lit up when Chen Guang appeared. Some people wanted to see him make a fool of himself. Some were afraid that their idol would be embarrassed, and some had an indifferent attitude. In their hearts, they had already sentenced Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm to death. This was just a boring copy of classic. Whether or not Chen Guang could continue acting, this play was just a ridiculous play by a local tycoon. It couldn't leave any trace in the history of art. Perhaps in the future, it would become a topic of conversation and a laughingstock. Although the actors on stage were professional, they were very reserved. They were just copying everything from the past, and there was nothing new. They even began to whisper rudely under the stage, just like the bald president and vice president. There were even some people who didn't like the play and were just here to watch the fun, thinking of leaving. Until Chen Guang appeared, everything seemed to change in an instant. On the stage in the style of the Republic of China, The exquisitely made props became dimmer without warning, giving people a strong sense of simplicity. Even the stage lights became gray, as if they were looking at an old painting that had been stored for 20 or 30 years. But what really changed was the state of the actors on stage. Fan Yi's cheating failed, and as a stepmother, she cheated on Zhou Ping. Now, she was facing the fate of being hated and abandoned. The complicated pouting and resentment when she spoke to Zhou Ping instantly made the hearts of those who understood the play race. This was a completely different state from before. Even those who didn't understand the play were aroused by her soft words. Beijing. Big Beard Deng stood up from the sofa. He still had a cigarette in his mouth, and the lighter in his hand was still emitting orange flames. His beard was almost burnt, but he didn't seem to notice. Jiang Yage and Jean Shuriwei, who were originally curled up lazily on the sofa, had already sat up straight. Their bodies were stiff as they stared at the TV, blinking their eyes, unable to believe what they were seeing. Unlike others, Jiang Yage and Jean Shuriwei had known Chen Guang for a long time, and they had seen Chen Guang's tragedy on the set of Tears for a Country Will Run. But they weren't like Yang Shi, who had seen how Chen Guang used his perfect performance to prove himself. Their view of Chen Guang was still stuck at the level where he could make the whole screen suffer from the cancer of embarrassment. So Jiang Yage and Jean Shuriwei were originally like Big Beard Deng, the most firm representatives who believed that Chen Guang's acting was not reliable. But what did they see now? One incredible scene. Yin Fei was completely taken in by his performance. Although Yin Fei wasn't particularly famous in the circle, she was considered a veteran in the field of drama. In the past, Jiang Yage and Jean Shuriwei had seen Yin Fei's performance live. They knew that this veteran was limited by talent. Although she was diligent enough, her overall level had stagnated and she couldn't improve. In the acting industry, although more learning, more practice, and more thinking could make up for the lack of standards to a certain extent, it was still an industry that relied on talent. Everyone could act, but whether they could perform the desired effect in front of the camera or on the stage, to the extent that it didn't feel like they were acting, depended on whether the performer could understand the requirements of the director and the script, feel the state of the character, and perform it perfectly. Some people needed to deliberate painstakingly, but some only needed to look at the script, find a corner to think about, ponder, and completely grasp the state of mind of the character. This was talent. After all, the upper limit of a person's level on the stage was determined by their talent. Yin Fei was a qualified and competent actress, and she was very talented among ordinary people. But she was not young anymore, and her upper limit was already there. Otherwise, she would have become famous a long time ago. Unless she was able to encounter some kind of life experience that allowed her to gain enlightenment, it was impossible for her level to change too much in a short period of time. But now, Yin Fei looked so talented and dazzling on the stage. In the eyes of ordinary people, they saw the role of Fan Yi. But in the eyes of professionals like Jean Shuriwei, Jiang Yage, or Big Beard Deng, they saw the actress Yin Fei herself. There was only one explanation. Yin Fei was influenced by someone else, and she was brought into the play by someone else. It was impossible to play the role of Zhou Cheng. Although this young man was a talented senior in school, many of his juniors were envious of him. Because of this and that, he performed poorly in this play. Sometimes, Yin Fei had to guide him, and he barely managed to stay in the play. As for the others, Shi Lu, who had already appeared on the stage, didn't have this ability. Although she did her job well, when it came to driving Yin Fei in the play, she was still miles away. The other passers-by, the old people and children at the opening, Lu Gui, Lu Dahai, and Hu Delin, who only had a few lines but never showed his face, didn't have this ability. There was only one explanation, and it must be Chen Guang, who was also on the stage at this time. He was like a bright lamp, illuminating the whole stage, and the people and things that were shrouded in his light were forcibly pulled out of this world and returned to the story described in the novel, which happened 100 years ago. The medium-sized stage was still there, and it was still on the television, but time seemed to flow backward in that part of the world. That was the world of Thunderstorm. That was Qiao Yu's world. That was also Chung Guang's world. The people in the play all came to life, and what we saw was not the play, but the life of the people in the play. Chapter 955. When the first act finally came to an end, and the 3.5-hour-long play came to a short rest, the audience was silent. Everyone's mind was constantly replaying the countless details of the first act that had just been played out. The drama lovers who had already watched Thunderstorm were wondering why they had never realized that Thunderstorm had so many connotations. After watching today's first act, they felt that the movie version and the live version of the drama that they had watched before were not even worth mentioning. The audience who came purely for Chen Guang had no understanding of Thunderstorm before, but this did not stop them from being completely immersed in it. As a classic that had been selected as a textbook, although not many people had seen this play, almost everyone knew the name of this classic. It was just that the predecessors thought that these were antiques that could not keep up with the times and belonged to the old things that had already been eliminated, so they were not interested in them. But because they had never seen it before, this time they felt it particularly deeply. Only then did they understand that the old things that they had always been against had such meanings. Although they were just watching a play, they experienced the extremely real sadness and joy of the people in the play. As for the backstage, the actors who had appeared on the stage in the first act were all sitting quietly in a corner, no one talking to anyone. Until now, these people still had not left the play. The complicated personality, Chao Zhou Ping, was still sitting there, as if wherever he went, the world of Thunderstorm would cover that place. Even Yang Shi, who was supposed to seize the time to talk to others about the play, subconsciously wanted to find a pipe and put it in his mouth. He himself had unknowingly returned to that era, and had become a passerby living in the play. He had completely forgotten his duty, and the others had completely forgotten to review the script. But this was actually meaningless, because these actors had even forgotten who they were. When they stood on the stage in that scene and environment, they did not need any memory. They would naturally say the lines that their character and position required. On the stage, they were not just copying simple lines. Their entire thinking had completely become that of the characters in the original Thunderstorm, written by Chao Yu. After a short break, the second act continued. It was not only the Wujing Theater that was quiet, but also countless audiences in front of their TVs and computers all over the country. She had originally planned to watch a farce, but she had never imagined that she would actually find true emotion in this farce. The more sensitive audience members couldn't help but put themselves in the shoes of the audience. The more rational audience was surprised. They were particularly puzzled. They had seen so many classic movies and TV shows over the years, but never had they been so deeply touched by the screen on that small square stage like today. Was it because he had become more emotional, or was it the aftereffect of accidentally drinking too much coffee before getting off work? It was undeniable that Chen Guang's acting was really good. It was perfect, beyond imagination, and impeccable. But in the end, this was just a play. All right, don't let your imagination run wild. The second act has begun. The audience once again focused their attention on the screen. Before he knew it, the second act had ended. The third and fourth act. The stage was in chaos because of Sifeng and Zhou Chang's deaths and Zhou Ping's suicide. Everyone knew that this seemingly chaotic scene was a story acted out by the actors. It was clearly a stage that had been set up, but everyone still felt that what they saw was really happening. The chaos on the stage formed a strong contrast with the quietness off the stage. Everyone clenched their fists tightly and held their breath. Xiaozong forgot to look down at the latest online number sent by the company's group chat. The PD in charge of the live broadcast of Mango TV forgot to direct the cut. The employees of Tianguang Agency also forgot to cheer for their boss's perfect performance. Big Beard Deng had long forgotten his worries at the beginning of the play. Although he was not completely immersed in the play like others, he had, after all, directed Thunderstorm when he was young. Compared to others, he could use a calmer and more professional gaze to judge today's play. But now, he felt that he didn't need to say anything. Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm had already completely surpassed all the classics of the past, and even surpassed his own inexperienced work when he was young. Big Beard knew that this was not Yangshi's credit. It was all because of Chun Guang's perfect performance. Before Chun Guang appeared on the stage, today's thunderstorm was at best a young director's passable work. The rehearsal time was only a short week. This was already the result of Yang Shi and several other leading actors' perfect performance. They couldn't ask for more. But the moment Chun Guang appeared on the stage, the play was completely sublimated. Chun Guang made this stage play follow the script, but it was higher than the script. He asked Chow Yu to write a script that was higher than life. Big Beard Deng leaned back and reached out to ask Old Ma, the stage manager next to him, for a cigarette. He lit it and took a deep breath. He, who had quit smoking for too long, accidentally coughed, and tears fell from the corners of his eyes. After a long time, he let out a long sigh and said, "I finally understand what little Yang told me before." Old Ma asked, "What did Xiao Yang say?" He said that Chun Guang was born to be an actor. Old Ma wanted to nod subconsciously, but he immediately remembered, "But when he acted in Jiangshan last time?" Big Beard Deng thought for a moment and said, "You can probably understand it this way. Einstein was not born to solve calculus. Although Chun Guang is a genius, he has never been exposed to acting before he acted in Jiangshan, so it makes sense that it was difficult for him to get started at that time. But then he suddenly completed it perfectly, didn't he? At the time, I thought that he had finally hit the jackpot, so I quickly passed it. Now that I think about it, he probably used only 2 or 3 hours to completely awaken from a newbie who didn't know how to act at all into a real, top-notch actor." Old Ma nodded. "The younger generation will surpass us in time." Big Beard shook his head again. "No, not every younger generation has Chun Guang's ability. It's not that the younger generation is surpassing us in time, but that our level is too low to understand a real genius." Old Ma asked, "Director Deng, it's okay that my level is low, but you can't be low too, right?" Big Beard Deng smiled bitterly. "I'll take Einstein as an example. His primary school math teacher can't compare with him, right?" Old Ma didn't say anything more. Big Beard had no problem mocking himself, so there was no need for him to add another stab to his wound. As a well-known director, he should be able to tell whether a person had the talent to become an actor or not with a few glances. However, Big Beard had questioned Chun Guang for so long, which was simply damaging to his reputation. In the West Mountain villas, Jiang Yage and Jin Shuriwei were also staring with their eyes wide open. No one could understand the incomparable regret in their hearts. If they had known that Chun Guang had this ability, even if they had to stop filming in Yanjing, they would have gone to Wujing to act with him. As for those haters who had slandered Chun Guang online or in their social circles, they were still breaking their promises this time. Those who had bet with their colleagues had already begun to think of a reason to skip work tomorrow. They would hide for as long as they could. Those who had bet with their classmates took out their mobile phones and planned to send a text message to their teachers to find a way to ask for sick leave. As for those who had bet with their wives or others, they didn't even have a place to hide. These days, there were all kinds of media outlets that had published articles questioning and criticizing Chun Guang on the internet. The fast ones had already published a new draft, while the slow ones were gnashing their teeth and writing. There was no doubt that the limelight of these media outlets didn't need to be looked at. They must have made a 180-degree turn. The media had never cared about moral integrity. They would follow the direction of the wind and write the draft. It didn't matter if they were scolded as fence-sitters. As long as what was written was enough to attract attention, who would care about face? Finally, under the attention of thousands of people, Yang Shi walked out from the backstage. He led all the main cast members and gently bowed to the audience below the stage. This scene of the most high-profile stage play in the past 10 years officially ended. At this time, Yang Shi didn't have the mood to care about the cheers of the audience below. He was just glad that his choice to bite the bullet and come to Wujing from Yanjing was not wrong. Even if the one who could let people remember today's thunderstorm must be Chun Guang. And when people mention today in the future, they will only say that this is Chun Guang's version of thunderstorm. But it doesn't matter. No one can change the fact that the director is me. I was finally able to hitch a ride with Chen Guang, just like Chairman Chong from Bamboo. Although there were many flaws at the beginning of the first act, no one could change the fact that this would be the most classic thunderstorm in history. In the small theater, even though all the main cast members had left after the curtain call, and everyone knew that this kind of show would not have an encore, hundreds of audience members still stood up and applauded for a long time. Fong Tianyu finally came back to his senses and clapped heavily. I knew President Chun would definitely be fine. Lu Xiaoyang, who was beside him, rolled his eyes. You knew again? That's not what you said before. Fong Tianyu snorted. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. When did I ever doubt President Chin's ability? But you were clearly cursing him in your heart. You are framing me. You despicable person, don't even think about fighting for favor with me. You said it. You've said that shameless word at last. President Chong, he just said the word fighting for favor, right? You heard it, right? Chong Xiaotsong, who was at the side, was speechless towards Chen Guang's two subordinates who had no moral integrity but were quite capable. Sure enough, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Like boss-like employee, isn't this a bit inappropriate? Forget it. Chen Guang doesn't know anyway. Chapter 956. Chong Xiaotsong finally had the mood to look at the online viewer report from the company. After reading it, he grinned again. Although the number of viewers did not exceed the previous peak, which was less than 17 million, the proportion of new registered users was extremely high, more than 30%. This meant that in just one night, Bamboo had nearly 6 million new registered users. This was much higher than the number of viewers during Chen Guang's previous live broadcasts. To achieve this number through advertising, they would have to spend at least hundreds of millions of yuan. However, this was only the power of Chen Guang's nuclear weapon tonight. At the same time, the number of viewers in Chen Guang's personal live broadcast room increased to 6 million. Including the slow increase previously, it had reached 7 million. This was an unparalleled number of viewers in the world. Chong Xiaotsong analyzed that the reason for this phenomenon should be that the skills Chen Guang displayed this time were different from the past. It was a performance ability that he had never really dabbled in before. This officially transformed him from an atypical internet celebrity to an artistic star. This time, he not only attracted those fans who only wanted to see strange things, but also those who usually paid more attention to movies, TV shows, or variety shows in the entertainment circle were also attracted to him. The target audience had changed, which directly led to the increase in the number of new registered users. Xiaotsong could not help but secretly feel lucky. Fortunately, he believed in his brother's ability, as always, and did not hesitate to offer a price of 10 million. Although some of his competitors also offered the same price, he still managed to snatch it by relying on his relationship with his old partner. Mango reckoned that they had also made a lot of money. Just based on the advertisements they aired during the breaks in between, the 11 million they invested in the licensing fee was more than enough to cover their capital. However, they would definitely regret it later. Fong Tianyu had learned to be very petty from Chen Guang. He would definitely complain to Chen Guang about Mango's intention to go back on their word. It would be difficult for them to take advantage of this in the future. Xiaotsong's guess was right. At this time, the upper management of Mango were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. Who would have thought that Chen Guang's weekly drama could be so perfect? At the end of the show, the ratings even broke 5%. It was even more popular than the finale of the TV station's Ace Variety show. One had to know that there was almost no pre-publicity effect. In the past, whenever Mango TV wanted to do a variety show, it would be bombarded with advertisements a few months before it started broadcasting. If they had the same time this time, it would be too good to be true. But now, they couldn't be happy, and it was even more awkward. If it was just a normal success, they wouldn't feel any pressure. However, the real-time statistics were so shocking. Their previous attempt to break the contract was ruined. The job of repairing the relationship fell to the manager who had called Fong Tianyu. At this moment, he who had just finished watching a play on the television just wanted to sing a song. Why are my eyes filled with tears? because I love this land too deeply. My fate is even worse than the people in the movie. At least those people could still fight and fight. At least Zhou Ping had the courage to take a bullet. I could only cower. Don't talk to me. From now on, I'm going to roam the pugilistic world. My nickname is Scapegoat. No one cared how miserable the manager of Mango TV was at this moment. But there were so many people backstage in the small theater who were also extremely embarrassed. At this moment, Chen Guang was sitting lazily in the dressing room, letting the stupid makeup artist help him remove his makeup. Sitting next to him were a few lead actors who were removing their makeup. These people were so excited that their faces were flushed. They had no idea what had happened to them. They had been acting well, but they had suddenly become completely different people. Now that the curtain had fallen, they had finally left the show. However, every bit of what had happened on the stage was clearly engraved in their minds. They could understand it themselves without anyone telling them. They had really completed an unbelievable performance. It was as if they had become someone else and lived again. Although the time was short, it was deeply remembered. This was a precious experience that was enough to make their acting skills qualitatively change. Finally, Hu Delin, who was sitting next to Chen Guang, was the first to not be able to hold it in. He signaled to the makeup artist to stop first, then turned to look at Chen Guang and said in a trembling voice, "Mr. Chen, I really don't know how to thank you for your great kindness. Anyway, thank you." For a veteran actor of his age, it was easier said than done to improve his acting skills. Now, just by acting in a play and even receiving 5 times the salary, he could improve his acting skills by leaps and bounds. How could he not be happy? How could he not be grateful from the bottom of his heart? Chen Guang turned his head slightly to look at Hu Delin and smiled indifferently. "Mr. Hu, you're too kind. I'm just doing what I should do." He did not mention what had happened before. At this point, there was no need to continue mentioning it. All of them understood that since he dared to come up with this play, dared not to rehearse, and even dared to read the script 4 hours before going on stage, of course, he had come prepared. As the saying goes, summer insects cannot talk about ice. There was no need for a godlike existence to explain too much to mortals. At this moment, he seemed so enigmatic, so steady, and so dignified. He was simply awesome. Hu Delin nodded repeatedly. "Understood. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chun." With Hu Delin taking the lead, Yin Fei and the other members of the cast also expressed their gratitude to Chen Guang from afar. There were even some who wanted to refund their salary, but they were all rejected by Chen Guang. After all, he wasn't lacking in money. Seeing how generous Chen Guang was and how he was like a master, the actors who had looked down on him felt extremely ashamed of their inferiority. This was a true powerhouse who could control his own fate in his work and life. Look at his magnanimity. He was indifferent and did not bother about trifles. From time to time, everyone would recall Chen Guang's seemingly casual words in the afternoon. At that time, they thought he was treating it as a joke. Only now did they understand that he had a card up his sleeve. There was only one person who could not sit still. As one of the main cast members, she should have been the first to remove her makeup. But at this moment, she hid far away in a corner and did not dare to come over, letting others go first. It was none other than Shi Lu, who had made the most noise in the afternoon. Although others had disdained Chen Guang in their hearts, they had at least restrained themselves on the surface. But Shi Lu had openly flipped out. Although she had unwillingly apologized to him after the incident, now that she thought about it, it was not an apology at all. It was clearly adding fuel to the fire. That little trick that she had hidden in her heart, how could she hide it from Master Chun? He must have completely seen through me. I have always blamed him wrongly. Thinking about how I had said so many bad things about him in the past few days, I felt terrible. No wonder he was so conceited. No wonder he said he understood our feelings at that time. In fact, it was because his realm and personality were already at a level beyond our understanding. He was already standing on another level of acting. His realm could not be expressed in words, or even if he could say it, we would not be able to understand or believe it. He did not even bother to explain it to us ordinary people, because he knew that no matter how much he said, it was better to take us to the stage. Not only could he put on a good show himself, but he could even bring all of us into it. He was God, the God of acting. But I had always doubted God's ability. So embarrassing. What should I do now? Should I go up and sincerely apologize to him again, and then say thank you to him like Sister Fei did? But why can't my feet move? Shilu paced back and forth in the same place, rubbing her hands so hard that a layer of skin almost peeled off. No one was more embarrassed than her at that moment. As a newcomer actress who was determined to achieve something in the performing arts, Shilu knew that it was reasonable for her to apologize to Qingguang. But as a young girl, she could not let go of her pride. I say, Xiaolu, why don't you go up and say a few words? Qingguang is only a little over 20 years old. He is younger than you. Look, he actually doesn't care about you at all. Shilu was surprised. He is so young? She nodded and snorted. What else can he do? Don't you know that he hasn't even graduated from university? A few days ago, I said in front of you that he would rather attend classes than rehearse. Didn't you hear me? Shilu blushed. At that time, I was only thinking about him in my heart and did not pay attention to what you said, Director Yang. All right, now that the show is over, you may not have a chance to interact with him in the future. You decide whether you want to apologize to him or not. Anyway, I think it is reasonable for you to say something. Shilu was silent. Her mind could not help but recall the scene of her and Chun Guang arguing in the afternoon. Now she finally understood. At that time, she thought that Chun Guang did not know what to do, but in fact, she was the one who did not know what to do. At that time, she felt that he did not care about the play, but in fact, he had already seen through everything. When she was making a scene, Chun Guang's expression did not change. It was not that he did not know what to do, but it was because he was looking at her with the mentality of an adult. He was not joking. He really did care about this play. I was so unreasonable at that time, but he did not get angry at me at all. Compared to him, I am as insignificant as a childish urchin. Finally, she mustered up her courage and walked quickly in the direction of the makeup table. What? He left? He did not attend the celebration? Shilu, who had pounced on nothing, stared blankly at the makeup artist who had already removed the makeup for the next person. She felt a little uncomfortable. Did he say anything when he left? Not yet. He did not ask about me. No. She jumped out from behind. Shilu, perhaps in his heart, the matter of you contradicting him is not worth mentioning at all. You should stop worrying about it. How can he do this? I am so sad. How can he not care about it all? She coughed lightly. What's so strange about this? Because he is Chun Guang. Sigh. Shilu felt melancholy again. However, although the show on stage was over, the storm on the internet had just begun. Chapter 9:57. Just as she had said, Chun Guang didn't take Shilu's matter seriously at all. After removing his makeup, he drove back to school. If it was before, Chun Guang would probably be interested in discussing acting and life with Shilu just because she was pretty. He would then criticize her for judging people based on their looks. But now, there was still a pool of mud on his, but that couldn't be wiped clean. Who would be interested in serving this unruly little girl at a glance? He hadn't even figured out her situation yet. If something really happened with his character, Shilu would definitely be in trouble if she got hold of something against him. Initially, Chun Guang had planned to go back to his dorm and have a good night's sleep. The next morning, he would pretend that nothing had happened and continue doing what he was supposed to do. However, he couldn't rest after he got back to his dorm. He was forcefully dragged out by Lin Jingwei and the others, saying that they wanted to celebrate for him. It's just a small matter. Is there a need to celebrate it? Chun Guang struggled to get up. Lin Jingwei and Xiong held him down on both sides. Xiong chuckled. You can't just think about yourself. We've been cheering you on so much that our voices are going hoarse. Aren't you going to treat us to a meal to celebrate? Lin Jingwei pulled him back with all his might. Yeah, hurry up. Gaoya and class rep's son should be at the school gate by now. They're going to? What else? Otherwise, we wouldn't have dragged you out in such a hurry. Wouldn't tomorrow's dinner be the same? Chun Guang stood up awkwardly. He didn't want to go out at this time, but it wasn't right to make the girls wait for him. All right, let's go. It's my treat. Eat whatever you want. Oh yeah, it's almost midnight. The school should be closing soon, right? Bai Nyangzi urged. Just close it. Brother Guang, when did you become such a coward? Climb over the wall. Coward your sister. Let's go. On the same day, the god of acting, Chun Guang, who had been shining brightly on the stage, turned around and prepared to eat skewers at a barbecue stall outside the school with a few classmates. After eating skewers, they still had to climb over the wall to return to school. Chun Guang was probably the most famous celebrity in history. When the four of them arrived at the school gate, it was almost 12 o'clock. Sun Xiaoxuan and Gao Yu were struggling to explain something to the security guards. Sun Xiaoxuan looked back and saw Chun Guang walking towards them. He quickly pulled Chun Guang over and said sneakily, "They won't let us out now. They said they're going to close the school gate. Don't show your face. It won't be good if someone sees you." Chun Guang patted Sun Xiaoxuan's shoulder indifferently. "What are you afraid of? We're just going out for a barbecue. It's not like we can't see the light of day." "Hey, you can't. What's wrong with that? It's not like we're university classmates going out for a barbecue will make the headlines. If I'm so afraid of doing anything, I won't be able to go out in the future." As he spoke, he strode forward. Gao Yu was still arguing with the security guards. "Just let us go out and buy something. We'll be right back. We won't climb over the wall. Really? Look at us, two delicate little girls. We don't look like we can climb over the wall. We have a few boys with us, but that's because we're worried that it's not safe for us to go out in the middle of the night. So we asked our classmates to be our bodyguards. Hey, why are you like this? There's still 5 minutes before 12 o'clock. Why can't you let us go out? Isn't the school's rule that we can go out before closing time? You're asking me which school I'm from? What? You want to complain to my school's leader? So what if I tell you? I'm not going to change my name. I'm Wenwan from the Department of International Trade in the School of Finance and Economics." Chun Guang was hiding leisurely and eavesdropping on Gao Ya's argument with the security guards. When he heard the last sentence, he couldn't sit still anymore. "Oh my God, you're not going to change your name? How dare you say that?" He quickly moved forward and blocked Gao Ya behind him. He smiled at the security guards and said, I'm sorry. We really have something urgent to do outside the school. We have to go out and deal with it. Could you please make an exception? I'm Chen Guang from the School of Construction Loop. This is my classmate, Gao Ya from the School of Construction Loop. She was just talking nonsense. Just ignore her." Before Chen Guang could finish his sentence, the security guard's mouth opened wider and wider. Chen Guang was speechless. "Didn't I just introduce myself? Why you look like you've just seen a ghost when you just recognized me?" The security guard's colleague, who was sitting behind him and looking at his phone, stood up immediately and rushed forward excitedly. "Chen Guang? This guy looked like he was looking at something strange. Oh, it's me. We don't have much time. Shall we go out now?" Guard A, who had just argued with Gao Ya, nodded. Okay. Mr. Chun, take care. Although we have to close at night, we're on duty all night. Let us know when you come back, and we'll open the door for you." Guard B, who was playing with his phone, patted his colleague with a meaningful look. Go. It'll be a miracle if Mr. Chun comes back. Mr. Chun, take care. I hope you have a good time. The hotel above Qing Yixin has a nice environment. It's awesome. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. Awesome my ass. Let's go. He waved his hand, and the others followed him out of the door. Even after walking out of the door for a long time, the others were still in a daze. In fact, it was already past 12 o'clock. They didn't expect to come out so easily. Walking on the road outside the school, Chen Guang laughed. "Now you know how awesome I am." I know. You're awesome, my brother. I'm so proud to know you." Gao Ya, who had failed to shift the blame, rolled her eyes and complained. Sun Xiaoxuan, who was holding her hand, covered his mouth and giggled. The others wanted to praise him, but since he was so cocky, they decided not to. Otherwise, he would go to heaven. There were pros and cons to being famous. At times like this, people could use their face cards, and if they knew you, they would show some respect. The fruit of face was super useful, and anyone who used it would know. When they arrived at the Golden Campus Square, Most of the barbecue stalls were about to close up. Luckily, the owner of the stall that they frequented had not closed the shutter door yet. The poor owner couldn't just give up on his business, so he ignored his wife and children, who were waiting at home, and started to work bitterly. However, he was not without benefits. The knowledgeable owner recognized Chen Guang at first glance, and he mustered up the courage to ask for a picture with him. "Mr. Chen, can I print this picture and hang it on the wall?" The owner's face was red, and he was rubbing the skewers with grease on his hands. No one knew if his face was red from nervousness or from the heat of the skewers. Chen Guang stuffed the skewers into his mouth. "No problem. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Today's meal is on me." The owner of the barbecue stall was very excited. He was only a small stall, and he had heard that it was not a problem to ask for a picture with a celebrity. However, if someone wanted to hang the picture in his stall, they would ask for a portrait fee, and it would cost hundreds of thousands. He was just trying to say it casually, and he didn't expect a big shot like Chen Guang to agree. He didn't expect Chen Guang to be so generous. Chen Guang laughed. "You're too kind, boss. It's not a big deal, but you can't pay for this meal. I told my classmate that it's my treat. Next time, next time." The owner of the barbecue stall didn't have an easy life. He had to wake up early and work late. With Chen Guang's appetite, he could easily eat up 1,000 or so there was no need for him to pay. The owner still wanted to argue, but Sun Xiaoxuan, who was sitting next to Chen Guang, said, "Boss, you don't have to be so polite with him. His sneeze is enough for us to eat for a year." The owner was touched. "Then, Mr. Chen, what title should I write on the picture?" Chen Guang thought for a while. "That's easy. You write, famous linguist, Dota folk god, world's top racer, pencil engraving artist, world arm wrestling champion, world's #1 piano master, world's champion of darts, winner of the ITA Hero Medal, and world's top performing artist. Chen Guang is here to guide the barbecue." Bai Nyangzi almost spat out his Coke onto the plate. "Damn. Boss, this piece of paper is not enough." Xiong gave him a thumbs up. "Do you still want to write most handsome male god of Jinhuan College?" Lin Jingwei coughed twice. "You remind me of Biao Bro, who is only one character away from your name. Are you going to print so many titles on your business card?" Galia complained. "If you don't do it for us, we won't even know that you have done so many things in the past few months." Sun Xiaoxuan's eyes lit up as he looked at Chen Guang. In the past, he liked Chen Guang's stubbornness, his sense of responsibility, and now, he liked Chen Guang's talent. He was like a bottomless pit. The closer you got to him, the more you couldn't bear to look away from him, and the more you were attracted to him. In this world, was there anything he couldn't do? Sun Xiaoxuan thought back to when he was watching the live broadcast with the other students in his dorm room today. Those unreserved girls clicked their tongues in amazement. He was actually quite proud of himself. "I, Sun Xiaoxuan, have always been a timid kid, but this time I've got the guts. At the very least, I've gotten ahead of him in class." The performing arts majors on the school forum were screaming and wailing, lamenting that Chen Guang didn't give them a way out. The guys in the foreign languages faculty also looked like they had nothing left to live for. This guy was worse than nothing. Although he hadn't attended any elective classes yet, it was said that the tutor of the 8 minor languages he had chosen had already given him full marks in advance, saying that he didn't have the courage to deduct a mark from him. What was even more outrageous were the girls from the School of Foreign Languages. Although these girls were not arrogant, they were not easy to deal with. Not everyone had a chance to get close to them. They would rather stay single until the end of time than to force themselves to be with someone else. But now, what did they say? They actually made a joint post on the school forum. "Chen Guang, your wives are asking you to go back to class in the foreign languages faculty. The moral degeneration of the world is getting worse day by day. People's hearts are not what they used to be, moral degeneration, and there's no bottom line. We understand that you want him to come to class. Frankly speaking, we also want to know why he is so awesome, how his brain works, and whether he has some special learning posture that can make his learning efficiency so high that it makes people's hair stand on end. If he can teach them a thing or two, of course, it's something that everyone dreams of. But isn't it too much for your wives to ask him to come back to class? And where's the bottom line? Where's your moral integrity? How do you want us the boys and the foreign languages faculty, to raise our heads in the future. The corner of the wall was dug up to the ground, and it was even dug up with the Lanxiang excavator. When this group of poor boys went to the girls to ask for justice, they were once again blocked by the girls' words. The original words of the girls were roughly like this: "Don't think about these useless things all day long. Learning skills is more useful than anything else. As long as you can learn a little bit of his martial arts, not to mention being his concubine, it's not impossible for you to be his meat toilet. You guys learn from others, but you don't have much skill, but your mind has a lot of crooked ideas. What do you think we are? Raised by your family?" This group of boys was really angry, but they really couldn't refute, so they could only vent their anger on Chen Guang on the internet. Sun Xiaoxuan didn't care about these inexplicable rivals in love. If he was really that easy to get, I would have to thank the heavens. While everyone was eating skewers, all kinds of articles were posted on the internet. The genius actor who subverts the era, Chen Guang, playing with tickets to a new realm. Where's Chen Guang's limit? An in-depth analysis of Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm, from the details to see the classic. The limit of the realm. How a person can affect the whole stage with his own strength. From another world on the screen, the real Thunderstorm. News articles with such titles appeared in countless media outlets, and were also reposted by countless self-media outlets, and shared by countless people with their friends and family. What was even more unexpected was that Deng Xiaojing, who had always stayed out of these entertainment matters, also posted an article on his social media account. He said, "Looking at Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm, as a director who once directed Thunderstorm, I feel like I am a toddler learning to walk." After a while, he actually posted again, "Seeing the words is like a face, seeing the shadow is like a person, seeing a person is like seeing a world, recalling Thunderstorm feelings." Big Beer Deng was the first famous director to come out to post, and not long after, another famous director, Shi Changhe, also posted a long article. Subversion under prejudice. Not every great actor comes from the accumulation of classics. Such a young actor, he was born great, only lacks a stage. Not long after, Shi Lu, one of the main creators of Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm, also posted a long article on her Weibo and Chen Guang. She first publicly apologized to Chen Guang, and then from the perspective of a personal participant, with the tone of an experienced person, she talked about her experience in the whole play, which was reposted and recognized by other main creators of the play. After a while, another main creator of Thunderstorm also stood up. He deeply repented and publicly admitted that the person who had been leaking information to the media for the past few days was actually him. He did not even dare to ask for forgiveness, but he really could not bear the incomparable pain in his heart, so he chose to be open and honest. How long does a young actor need to prove his acting skills? Perhaps it was a classic movie, or perhaps it was a heavyweight, incredible award, or perhaps it was a popular TV series that was praised by everyone. But no one had ever thought that there would be such a person on stage for the first time. With just one play, 3.5 hours, he was able to turn the tide of public opinion that was ridiculing him, slandering him, and ridiculing him into worship in an instant. But Chen Guang did it effortlessly. He even started to figure out the script 4 hours before he went on stage. But his success not only did not let people see the art of acting clearly, but it also made people worship this art from the bottom of their hearts. But this was the biggest advantage of Chen Guang. No matter how much trouble there was outside, he was still himself. Countless people's gazes were focused on him, and countless people were cheering and jumping for his subversive performance, feeling that he was a celestial being. He was walking out of the barbecue stall with a few of his classmates. Stepping under the moonlight outside of Wujing University, he was joking with Lin Jingwei and the others from time to time. Otherwise, he would use his broken gong-like voice to sing loudly. He was changing himself every moment, and he was also affecting the world, but in a sense, he had never changed. He had the calmest heart, never moved by external things. Chapter 958. Are we really going to wake up the two guards? Standing under the school wall, Gaoya looked at her watch. It's already past 2 in the morning. I'm a little embarrassed. Bai Fan climbed up the wall like a monkey. It's not worth it. We've climbed this wall hundreds of times. I can do it even with my eyes closed. He smiled proudly and jumped down. Whoosh. He was so pleased with himself that his clothes got caught on the sharp awl of the fence. He looked like a piece of cured meat waiting to be dried in the winter. F***CK. My clothes. Bai Fan screamed in a low voice. Chen Guang and the others were overjoyed. You should thank the heavens. You should be thankful that I didn't strip you naked. Chen Guang picked up a branch from the ground and poked Bai Fan's butt. Brother Guang, don't mess around. I'm panicking. I'm trying to poke you down. Bear 2 roared without any sense of propriety. Let me do it. Then, out of nowhere, he took out a big stick as thick as a calf and poked it at Lady White's buttocks. The white snake screamed. Bramble, it broke free from the sharp awl and fell down with its legs between its legs. Fortunately, although it was small, it was agile and landed on the ground with its legs between its legs like a gymnast. Full marks. The others were startled by Nyangzi and Xiong's actions. They looked left and right to make sure no one was around before they calmed down. Some things were really strange. No matter how high one's status in the underworld was, they would still feel uneasy when they were doing something sneaky like climbing over a wall. Galia whispered, "Stop howling. What if someone saw you? Wouldn't it be embarrassing? Bai Fan, you're such a noob." As she spoke, she grabbed the railing with both hands and flipped over in no time, landing beautifully on the ground. Only Lin Jingwei, who had raised his palms to support her bottom, was left staring at the air. He was most afraid of the air suddenly becoming quiet. Chen Guang patted his shoulder sympathetically. This was the only disadvantage of having a tough girlfriend. He wanted to take advantage of her, but he didn't even have the chance to take advantage of her. Next, Xiong'er and Lin Jingwei flipped over one after the other, leaving Chen Guang and Sun Xiaoxian outside. A few people inside turned around and Galia urged, "Hurry up, we still have to attend the second professional class tomorrow morning." Sun Xiaoxian nervously glanced at the big hole in by Nyangzi's clothes and said in a low voice, I'm a little scared." Galia rolled her eyes. "Don't bother if you're afraid. Didn't the security guard say that the hotel above Qingyaxian is quite good?" Lin Jingwei nodded. "Yeah, that's right, especially the love room. It's awesome." Galia smacked him on the forehead. "Who asked you to tell me? Tell me. No one will think you're mute if you don't talk. No matter how awesome you are. How awesome are you?" Sun Xiaoxian blushed, and Chen Guang rolled his eyes. He turned around to look at Sun Xiaoxian, intending to help Lin Jingwei out of the situation. However, Chen Guang never expected that his heart would thump when he looked at Sun Tao's face. Although class monitor Sun's face was red, his eyes were glowing. He didn't know why, but he was a little flustered and felt sorry for her. "Forget it. I'll give in first. I'm not in the mood for that right now." Sun Xiaoxian saw that Chen Guang was looking at her with a thoughtful look on his face, and thought that he was really considering taking her to do something at this time. She wanted to be reserved, but when the words came out of her mouth, she said, "I really don't dare to flip. My clothes are looser than Bai Fan's. It would be troublesome if they got caught." Hearing those words, Chen Guang was shocked. Since when did class monitor's son become so bold? She was obviously implying something. He couldn't let her continue, so Chen Guang decided to send her over. He coughed lightly and said, "It's just a small case. Do you want to see the power of a martial arts master?" As he said this, he put his arm around Sun Xiaoxian's waist. According to his plan, he would be able to take her from one side of the fence to the other side in a whoosh, just like in the movies. Unexpectedly, Sun Xiaoxian's body softened when he put his arm around her waist. Her face turned even redder, and she subconsciously put her arms around his waist. Almost half of her body was pressed against his. "There are a lot of people here. Don't say that. I'm embarrassed." Chen Guang, who was about to take a breath, almost lost his breath. "What are you thinking?" Sun Xiaoxian looked back at him. Although her face was red, she still plucked up the courage to ask, "I know you are very powerful, but it doesn't matter. I could do it." Her voice was getting lower and lower, almost like the buzz of a mosquito. If it weren't for Chen Guang's sharp ears, he wouldn't have been able to hear her clearly. The people behind the fence had already turned around and were about to leave. Gaoyu giggled, go, really go. We will definitely keep this a secret for you. Girls can't be kept at home when they grow up. Chun Guang finally came to his senses. I'm not talking about how powerful you are. I'm not talking about how powerful you think I am. Okay? You're quite open-minded. What are you thinking about? That's what I'm talking about. He couldn't delay any longer. Otherwise, the situation would get out of control. Chun Guang tightened his grip on Sun Xiaoxuan's waist. He hugged her tightly, and his feet bounced off the ground. Lin Jingwei, Gaoya, Bai Fan, and Xiong Jinka had just turned around and were about to continue teasing them. Chun Guang held Sun Xiaoxuan with one hand and lifted her up into the air like a rocket. The two of them rose until they were about 3 meters above the ground before they stopped their upward momentum. Just as they passed over the railing, they gently landed on the ground inside. Half of Sun Xiaoxuan's body was still hanging on Chun Guang. She blinked her eyes, not understanding what was going on. The others were also dumbfounded. The slow-witted Sun Xiaoxuan finally opened his mouth and screamed. Fortunately, Chun Guang moved quickly and covered her mouth. Don't scream. It's not a big deal. This is Qigong. It's just Qigong. It's like what you see in TV shows every day. After a long while, he finally calmed Sun Xiaoxuan down. The others had already rushed back and looked at him as if he was a monster. My brother, you're amazing. Where did you learn it? The white lady was startled and flustered. Xiong'er rushed up and kneeled on the ground. My teacher, please accept my disciple's bow. Lin Jingwei already knew about his skills. In order to cooperate with the others, he could only pretend to be shocked. However, with the precedent of Xiong'er instantly acknowledging a master in front of him, Lin Jingwei was actually somewhat moved. However, he knew more than ordinary people. He understood that wanting to learn inner strength at his age was practically a pipe dream. In the end, he endured and didn't embarrass himself. Gaoya squinted her eyes and moved closer. You've accidentally let something slip again. Chun Guang, just how big a secret are you hiding? Tell the truth, and you'll be lenient. Resist. Sun Xiaoxuan had been released by Chun Guang. He turned back and looked at Chun Guang expectantly. She had wanted to ask Gaoya the same question, but she was too embarrassed to ask. Flicking his newly grown hair, Chun Guang continued, It looks like I have no choice but to admit it now. What? Everyone looked at him eagerly, feeling that what he was about to say next might be a big secret. Actually, Chun Guang purposely dragged out his voice. Everyone's eyes widened and their breathing quickened. They were all focused, afraid to miss a word. Actually, I'm for Planet Namek. I'm a prince. F***CK off. Go away. Fine, I was just talking nonsense. What I'm about to say is the truth. I advise you not to seek your own death. Have you guys seen Frozen Hero? Actually, I'm Zhang Wuji, the leader of the Ming cult who has been frozen for 1,000 years. After I woke up, I went to university to reintegrate into modern society. Kill him. Let's beat this scumbag to death. While they were fooling around, the patrolling campus police finally noticed the commotion. They walked over with their flashlights, yelling as they walked, What are you doing? Which school are you from? Seeing this, the crowd cried out in alarm. Chun Guang carried Sun Xiaoxuan on his back and took the lead in running. The others also shrank back, not bothering to ask about Chun Guang's background. They ran after him. The campus police pretended to chase them for a while, but eventually gave up. He could tell from afar that these people were students, so there was no need to chase them. The campus police sometimes looked fierce, but in fact, they usually didn't really want to do anything to these naughty students. After a while, Sun Xiaoxuan and Gaoya were sent back to the girls' dormitory, while Chun Guang and the other 3 returned to the boys' dormitory. On the way back, Lin Jingwei teased, Brother Guang, you're really something. How could you let go of class rep Sun with such a good opportunity? Chun Guang turned his head to look at him and whispered, I'm not good enough for her. Lin Jingwei was stunned. Huh? What do you mean? Shrugging his shoulders, Chun Guang pointed at his left chest and continued, You understand me. There are some things that I like to flaunt, but there are also some things that I can't bring up. I'm a complicated person. Truth be told, I've already tried my best to restrain myself, but I would always encounter unexpected situations. After returning to the dormitory, Xiong'er brought up the matter of becoming Chen Guang's disciple, but Chen Guang quickly dismissed the idea. In fact, he could have given Bramble a custom-made training in the world within a cup, just like how he had trained Xuelin. However, as a well-trained elite, Xuelin's survival rate was only 37%. Xiong'er looked tall and strong, but he was just an ordinary person after all. His willpower couldn't be compared to Xuelin's. If he was sent to the training, his survival rate would be less than 10%. As for letting people like Xiong'er, Bai Nyangzi, and Lin Jingwei build the foundation from scratch, Chen Guang felt that it was better to save it. Even though he was talented, he still relied on the Holy Grail to make a comeback. Otherwise, even with Wenwen's endless supply of herbs, he wouldn't be able to get a blister for at least a decade or two. Back then, when Wenwen imparted the painting scroll to him, didn't she also know that he wouldn't be able to get any results without years of hard work? So she planned to use this technique to kill him? Of course, Chen Guang had also mastered some techniques in the Jinwu continent, such as the Virgin Boy Divine technique. However, even if it was the Virgin Boy Divine technique, one had to have a basic physical body before they could start cultivating it. These young lads were a little old, and it was too late to start building the foundation now. Of course, Chen Guang wasn't in a hurry. The Heavenly Holy Grail was only at the one-line sky level. When it was upgraded to the three-line cloud sky, there might be a way to be safe. If he really had the chance, the philanthropic Chen Guang said that he would have all his relatives, friends, and friends. As long as he was on good terms with them, he would have them all. So this was how he comforted Xiong. He caressed Xiong'er's head and said earnestly, "Young lad, don't be anxious. Who are you? How can I forget you when I become rich? It's just that now isn't the right time. When I become invincible in the universe and punch through the path of life and death, I will definitely bring you guys to show off and fly. Okay?" Xiong'er's eyes lit up. Lin Jingwei and Bai Nyangzi also leaned over. The three of them asked in unison, "Really?" Chen Guang nodded. Of course. As the saying goes, when a man achieves the Tao, his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. Little chick, little dog, and little bear, although you're a little heavy, you won't be able to run away if I bring you guys to heaven. Get lost. After a night of chatting, the other three finally couldn't open their eyes. Only then did Chen Guang sleep peacefully. When he woke up early in the morning, it was another beautiful day. This morning, the other three didn't have any classes. They weren't as diligent as Gao Ye and Sun Xiaoxuan, choosing a second major. Chen Guang counted on his fingers. He had 2 foreign language classes. Looking at the three who were still snoring like thunder, Chen Guang could only curse them with envy and hate. I wish you guys a long sleep. It was already late autumn, and the morning air was thick with coldness. Although Chen Guang's body had been trained to be impervious to fire and water, as the saying goes, it's a good cold autumn. Getting up early is not as good as a dog. The laziness in his bones always seemed especially overbearing every cold morning. Although he had already woken up, he first opened his eyes, then closed them. When he opened his eyes again, 10 minutes had already been stolen. He turned his head to look at the newly bought Popcorn Pro 6 Plus beside his pillow. There were only 15 minutes left until the first class. He was like a tightly wound frog, jumping up and down. 3 minutes to wash up, 1 minute to go downstairs. From the time he got up to the time he trotted on the long bridge while eating a bun, it took him less than 8 minutes to get to the first building. "Look, that's Chen Guang." A girl on the long bridge recognized him and exclaimed. The girl's exclamation caused more people to focus their attention on this handsome man who was as beautiful as the wind. The thought of asking Chen Guang for an autograph came to many people's minds. However, when they saw Chen Guang, who was trotting happily while eating a bun without any astrology, the idea of asking for an autograph instantly collapsed. Strange, I might have seen a fake celebrity. How is he a celebrity? He's no different from us when we're about to be late for class. As his fans, it's so embarrassing. Are we really going to ask him for an autograph? While these people were hesitating, Chun Guang had already run across the long bridge. They should feel lucky that they hadn't seen the most shocking scene. If they recognized that the mobile phone Chun Guang was using was the latest popcorn model that had been nicknamed 3P6P, they would be even more embarrassed. The popcorn mobile phone was about to go out of business, and the only spokesperson was Fudikang's Zhang Quanegg. Its annual sales were less than that of other companies in a week, but Chun Guang actually knew how to use it. Do you have any self-awareness as a celebrity? Chapter 959. As he walked down the stairs, Chun Guang took out his mobile phone and logged into Azure Starry Sky to find out where his classroom was. At the same time, he checked the forum. He was happy that the boys from the School of Foreign Languages, who had received a critical blow a few days ago, had started to stir up trouble on the Azure Starry Sky forum again. But this time, they had learned their lesson. They didn't say anything about boycotting him to take up foreign languages, and no one dared to jump out and question the teachers who gave full marks in advance. Thinking back to the last time, he used his celebrity identity to try to get credits through under-the-table manipulation. As a result, he went to the World's Language Club and won the well-deserved championship of the World's Language Club competition. If he did it again, God knows if he would expand his scope to animals next time and put on a show called Where Do the Amazing Animals Go? So this time, the boys focused their attention on his private life. After all, there were many aspects that Chun Guang didn't hide. He had publicly confessed to his counselor. Until now, he was still entangled with Jean Shuriwei. He also had a particularly cute confidant in his class, the class monitor. It was impossible for him to have a clean relationship with the mature and beautiful Vice President Tang of his company. Such a boy must be a humanoid fighter. Just as the girls signed a joint petition to ask Chun Guang to return to the School of Foreign Languages, the boys also signed a joint petition, calling on the girls to be on guard against him. Chun Guang was amused by the way these people guarded against thieves as if they were wolves. You guys like to shout all day long. I didn't think much about it. Seeing you guys being so afraid of this and that all day long, are you really not treating a bean bun like dried vegetables? For a moment, a mischievous idea came to him. He simply used his own account to reply to a post below, which was basically to inform the students that he was coming to class. The boys and girls of the School of Foreign Languages, who had already been waiting for class in advance, suddenly exploded. The boys began to curse, and the girls' pupils were shining. Last week, when he was criticized for skipping class, the boys of the School of Foreign Languages were still gloating. They didn't expect that after just 1 week, this guy actually came to class. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have encouraged others to join forces to pressure the school to find trouble with him for skipping class. Wasn't this lifting a stone only to drop it on their own feet? You're already the world's #1 language master. Why do you still come to class? Can you just skip class until the end of the semester? Unfortunately, it was easier to invite a god and then to send him away. This god was already standing outside the classroom in the midst of the boys' endless melancholy. Ring, 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 ring. As the bell rang, Chun Guang stepped into the classroom. The Celtic teacher, who was in her 30s and was in the prime of her life, suppressed the excitement in her heart. She turned around and looked at Chun Guang with a bright smile. "Mr. Chun, please come in." There was an uproar in the classroom. The teacher actually called him Teacher Chun. What the hell? However, they quickly reacted. Many of the people Chun Guang defeated at the World Language Conference were world-renowned experts and scholars. He even won the competition with an unstoppable momentum. Then, he himself was also a world-class scholar. It was just that in the past, because he was the same age as everyone else, and because he had too many different halos, they subconsciously ignored his academic achievements. Now that the teacher addressed him respectfully, the boys finally reacted. This was the champion of the World Language Conference, and currently the world's recognized greatest linguist. Chun Guang also did not react. He was stunned for a moment before he scratched his head and smiled awkwardly. "Thank you, teacher." After saying that, he walked inside. He originally planned to find a seat in the back row, but the female teacher designated a seat for him. It was the first row below the podium. "Teacher Chun, please sit here." I recently prepared a lot of questions to ask you. Chun Guang, who was taking out his textbooks from his bag, did not feel very good. To be fair, I'm here to attend class today, not to teach. However, it was clear that others did not think so. The girls in the first row also surrounded him. Like the female teacher, each of them had a basket of questions. Chun Guang was overwhelmed. Fortunately, the teacher came to his rescue. She told everyone to restrain themselves and to ask any questions after class. Facing the teacher's behavior, which only allowed the officials to set fires and not allow the common people to light lamps, the girls dared not say anything. Looking at this fellow in the midst of the flowers with a blissful and troubled look, the boys who habitually shrunk to the back during class regretted it so much that their intestines turned green. If they had known this would happen, they would have occupied the first few rows. Now, this fellow had plunged headfirst into the kingdom of women. Throughout the entire class, the cunning and far-sighted teacher hid many of the questions she had prepared in the past in the normal lecture. From time to time, she would ask Chun Guang. The tireless teacher Guang also answered her questions easily and smoothly. Although this female teacher was not old, she was able to teach at Gokyo University. Her standards were not low. She was indeed very good at solving some of the knots that she did not understand. Fortunately, the person she met was Chun Guang. If it had been an ordinary expert, they might not have been able to handle it. During the entire class, the female teacher who used her position for personal gain did not talk much. In the end, she answered many of her own questions. Not only did she make the students marvel at Chun Guang's reputation as the world's #1 linguist, but she also made the girls' hearts itch. At the same time, she broke the hearts of the boys into pieces. This guy was really capable. When the class was over, the female teacher had not finished asking questions. However, she had already occupied the entire class of Chun Guang. She had to leave some time for the others. She could only throw a flirtatious glance at Chun Guang and ask him to see her next week. Then, she swayed her hips and walked out of the classroom. Her whole body was floating, and there was wind under her feet. On the other side, Chun Guang was immediately surrounded by the girls who came up to him. Every girl had a basket of questions. There was only a 10-minute break before the next class. There was no way he could answer all of them. He suddenly had an idea. He used his phone to create a group chat. Then, he broke away from the crowd and jumped onto the blackboard. He shouted, "Everyone, don't panic. Don't panic. Time is tight. I still have to speak Tocharian in the next class. I really can't answer everyone's questions here. But please don't worry. Everyone, look at this group number. If you have any questions that you want to ask me, you can join this group to find me." As he said that, he tapped his finger on the number on the blackboard. Some of the faster girls had already taken out their phones and started searching. Learn a foreign language and look for Chun Guang. A pretty girl who looked like the prettiest girl in the foreign language faculty blinked and asked. Chun Guang nodded. "Uh-huh, that's right. That's the group name. When everyone joins the group, remember to write down your name, student number, year, and profession name in the verification information. You have to verify it. This group only accepts my alumni. It doesn't accept people from other schools. You have to change your name after joining the group." Looking at this pretty girl, his heart was filled with happiness. In public, even if others had any crooked thoughts about him, they wouldn't be able to show it. As long as he created this harem group, he would have a harem of 3,000 beauties. No, the supergroup would have at most 2,000 people. In short, if there were a few more girls who were as pretty as this pretty girl and as bold and unrestrained as Jiang Yage, then wouldn't the large-scale welfare in the future be? The old man was such an upright person. How could he have such crooked thoughts in his heart? Of course, if the other party were to send welfare photos without saying a word, it definitely wouldn't be his fault if my eyes accidentally saw it. Fortunately, his acting skills were excellent. Otherwise, his face would have rippled with a smile after his mind was distracted for a while. Hey, what about us guys? Can we join group 2? Finally, a male straight, a student in the back row, couldn't sit still. If there were others, then his status as a straight A student would be affected. Chun Guang snorted coldly. Guys? Seeing his unhappy expression, Many of the guys in the audience felt their hearts tighten. However, there were also some guys who were gradually angered. However, they were afraid of his reputation and didn't dare to criticize him in public. At the same time, there were also girls who secretly thought that Chen Guang was as lustful as the rumors said. Although everyone jokingly teased them as his wives on the school website, if he really was that kind of person, it would actually be quite disappointing. At this moment, Chen Guang, who was on the stage, changed the topic. Guys, of course, can do it too. As soon as Chen Guang said this, many of the girls secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, the guys' emotions were complicated. Some were ashamed to the point that their ears turned red. There were also some who were overjoyed and had already begun to frantically organize their notebooks. They were ashamed that they had gauged the heart of a gentleman with their own mean measures. It was obvious that Chen Guang had already mastered countless foreign languages. He had chosen these minor languages brazenly to get credits, not for their precious female resources. What they were happy about was that they could ask Chen Guang questions just like the girls. Although the students that were able to get into Wujing University were a little more relaxed after entering the school, they were actually the cream of the crop in their respective classes back in high school. They more or less had some pursuits and were here to learn true knowledge. I'm sorry, Mr. Chen. We misunderstood you in the past. The male straight, a student who had been the most active on the school forum, previously stood up with a red face and apologized in public. However, Chen Guang changed the topic again. Don't be in a hurry to apologize. I have to say the ugly words first. If people respect me, I will respect them tenfold. Previously, you guys were so happy to criticize me on the internet. I have never settled the score with you guys because I was too lazy to care. But this doesn't mean that I like to return good for evil. I am not that magnanimous. I think you guys have seen a lot of reports about me on the internet. Yes, I am a narrow-minded man. Then Mr. Chen, what do you mean? The male straight, the student was confused. He had just said that they could ask him questions. What did he mean now? Chen Guang rolled his eyes. It's very simple. About this group, I have a few points. After I finish the other 7 courses, I guess there will be a lot of people joining the group. I guess you will also tell the group number in the School of Foreign Languages, so I don't know how many people will join the group at that time. You all know that I am very busy, so I can't answer questions for you all day. I don't have that time, and I can't shine the light on everyone. The whole class heard this and nodded. What he said was reasonable. So about the boys, I have 3 conditions. First, if you want to ask me questions, you must be in the top 10 in your class. Otherwise, don't come to me. Second, you have to pay 500 yuan for each question. Well, you guys know that I don't need this money, but why do I have to charge it? The reason is very simple. I am stingy. You guys scolded me, and I still have to answer questions for you. I am not Sakyamuni, right? Third, every boy can't ask more than 1 question a month. Okay, about the boys, these are the 3 conditions. When Chen Guang finished his words, all the guys started wailing. His rules were so harsh that it made people's hair stand on end. But the reason was on his side. Everyone knew that he was a tycoon with a net worth of hundreds of millions. So 500 yuan was really nothing to him. But then again, thinking about the consulting fees of other experts and scholars, with his status in the field of linguistics, let alone 500 yuan, he was afraid that if he took it to the outside world, he would probably have to queue up for 50,000 yuan. Thinking about it this way, although Mr. Chen said that he was stingy, his generosity made the boys feel ashamed of their inferiority. What a great person, what a generous person, who had gotten rid of vulgar tastes and had great sentiments and integrity. Presumably, it was because he had such a noble personality that he could have such shocking talent, right? What about the girls? What about the girls? The prettily beautiful girl asked anxiously. The boy's conditions were too harsh, making her feel uneasy. Chen Guang laughed. Girls, no conditions. As long as I'm not busy, I can answer any questions I see online. If the questions are too complicated, one-on-one video tutorials are not out of the question. The guys instantly collapsed. F***CK, this difference in treatment was too much. Mr. Chen, is it too late for me to cut it off now? The top student from before wailed helplessly. Chen Guang looked at the man. Transvestites are not allowed to ask questions, especially those with thick eyebrows and big eyes like you. Oh, no. 2 lines of regretful tears flowed down the top student's cheeks. Before leaving, Chen Guang appointed the first group manager of Fine Chen Guang for foreign language learners. It was none other than the beautiful girl called Blue Lavender. He also secretly hinted to her that he was usually busy during the day and would have more free time at night, especially after midnight. In addition, he had a unique skill to summon the dragon god. He also taught her a one-on-one video in the bathtub to increase the success rate of summoning by 200%. Of course, he was just joking. He didn't manage to control his mouth, so he accidentally blurted it out. Thinking about it, she would not really have the guts to summon him in the bathtub, right? Thinking back to the way Blue Lavender blushed when he left, Chen Guang gave himself a hard slap. He must sew up this stinky mouth next time. Chen Guang did not expect that after 3 days, his Fine Chen Guang for foreign language learners group would be full. As for those who came late and did not join, Chen Guang could only express his helplessness. After all, the supergroup could only have 2,000 people. Looking at the 77% of the group members who were female, he almost used all his strength to control the drool at the corner of his mouth. After all, the conditions he set for the boys were a little too harsh. There were only a few boys who could enter the top 10 in the class. There was no point for those who were clearly far from him to come in, except for Blue Lavender, who knew a little of the inside story. In the eyes of the other students, this group was also a very holy academic temple. Since they could not ask questions, they could only be kicked out, even if they forced their way in. So, they did not want to embarrass themselves. Therefore, the final result was that the ratio of men and women in the group was completely out of balance. Chen Guang put his finger on the heads of a few boys. He hesitated for a long time and finally gave up the idea of kicking these guys out and building a harem of 2,000 beauties. You may not believe it, but I'm actually a good person. Chapter 960. For the next few days, Chen Guang was deeply immersed in being a student and a professor at the same time, unable to extricate himself. As he expected, as long as it was an elective course in a small language, he would be entangled by the teachers and students in that classroom. The teachers could use the time in class to pretend to let him answer the questions, but in fact, they were all using their positions for personal gain. The students could only find ways to add his Fine Chen Guang for learning foreign languages harem group. During this period, there was an interlude. The dean of the School of Foreign Languages dragged the newly appointed vice president to find him, and shamelessly tried to let him directly teach in the School of Foreign Languages. Chen Guang refused at that time. Are you kidding me? Do I look like a teacher? I'd rather play games than run to the podium to give a lecture, okay? Do I look like I'm very free? But he finally gave in. From now until the final exam, he didn't need to go to the classroom for the 8 elective courses in small languages, nor did he need to take attendance. He didn't even need to take the exam. He just needed to give a full score without any explanation. He only needed to give a lecture at the end of the semester, and he could talk about any content in the public course. In addition, the School of Foreign Languages also prepared a place for him as an honorary professor. At that time, Chen Guang couldn't stay calm, and the vice president also couldn't sit still. After all, the school had publicly criticized Chen Guang for skipping classes last week and recorded a demerit on his record. This was what the Foreign Language School's dean said. The World's Language Conference is a global academic event, and anyone that can rank amongst the top in the World's Language Conference is an outstanding figure in the world of linguistics. All of them can be considered as grandmaster-level scholars. Not to mention that Chen Guang has undeniable academic achievements, and he's the champion of the World's Language Conference. With his knowledge, our School of Foreign Languages of Gokyo University can invite him as an honorary professor, and that's because of his light. Headmaster, you might not know this, but I heard that Yale and Cambridge, these world-renowned universities, have just finished discussing and are preparing to publicly send an invitation to Chen Guang. Chen Guang, who was listening at the side, was immediately overjoyed. He took out his mobile phone and planned to make a call to inquire about this matter. There was no other reason. The title of an honorary professor of an Ivy League school. With this title, he could take it home and ask his father to make a plaque. He could guarantee that his father would be so happy that his mouth would split from the back of his head. He could boast from East Street to West Street in Lehigh County. After all, the demerit he got last week had really pissed him off. He needed to let him recover quickly. Seeing Chen Guang's movement, the dean and the vice president of the School of Foreign Languages were startled and immediately stopped him. The two of them tried their best to persuade this world-class scholar to stay. The dean was drenched in cold sweat. He had accidentally let the cat out of the bag, and this fellow had almost jumped to the Ivy League. Who the hell would have thought that this lunatic would have such a broad train of thought? Just give him a little color, and he would go to heaven? Where is your patriotism? Where is your moral integrity? As a result, after Chen Guang became the first celebrity student of Gokyo University to have a public demerit, he once again became the first undergraduate student to become an honorary professor during the demerit period. He was simply born to create history. With a satisfied mind, Chen Guang walked out of the office of the dean of the School of Foreign Languages. After the earnest persuasion of the two school leaders, he chose his alma mater and entrusted them to help him reject the invitation of the Ivy League. But there was nothing to regret. Anyway, the title of an honorary professor should be enough for his father to recover. Gokyo University was not bad either. Unknowingly, it was Friday again. The four people in the dormitory dragged the elegant and happy ladder 5 players game. The standard one god with 4 legs played the game until the wee hours of the morning. Then the next day, Chen Guang got up early again. The other 3 people snored like thunder every day, but Chen Guang had to go out early. He had to cut the ribbon. More than 10 days had passed. The preparations for Tianguang Media's hanging up and cutting the ribbon were done. Although insiders knew that Tianguang Media's branch was just an empty shell for cashing out, an ugly daughter-in-law had to meet her in-laws. Since the hanging up was going to be paid 1 billion yuan by Chairman Rao of the Rising Seas Foundation, they had to make some noise and make some noise. Otherwise, Chairman Rao would not be able to answer to the other investors related to the Rising Seas Foundation. They had to show others that they had invested in a big company with a bright future. They had size and value. They had the world's #1 internet celebrity as their platform. They also had a lot of quality IP resources that could be developed. After all, this was not 1,000 or 800,000 yuan. This was 1 billion yuan in cash. The Rising Seas Insurance Fund was not a private company of one person. It was a large investment group with countless shareholders of various sizes. It was a fund that was rather influential in the domestic investment world. Although Rao Zhenghai was the head of the Rising Seas Fund, even if everyone knew that he was bluffing, he still had to give them an explanation. As for whether this shell company, Tianguang Media, was worth 20 billion yuan, of course it was not worth it. However, this was an era of blindfolded people. It did not matter if it was worth it or not. If they said it was worth it, and they took out the money, the company was put on the table. The company gradually had goods in its pockets, and it was profitable. In that case, it was really worth that much money. Of course, there was another situation. After the company received the 1 billion yuan in cash, not only did it not make a profit from the project, but it also made a loss. After making a loss for a while, the capital chain broke, and the company went bankrupt. However, there was nothing strange about this. In business and investment, one could not always make a profit. Even the stock god, Warren Buffett, lost billions of US dollars in IBM in 2 years. The moon waxed and waned, and people experienced sorrow and joy. In the business world, when it came to capital operations, it was very normal and reasonable to make a profit. In the past, Chen Guang did not like this kind of thing. Well, in fact, he did not like this kind of thing either. In this kind of capital operation, the people who made money were always the rich, and the people who suffered losses were always the ordinary people. For example, in his case, at least on the surface, The people who really suffered losses were the small shareholders and the small citizens who were insignificant in the stock market and the fund market. As for the other influential shareholders, Rao Xinghai would find ways to compensate them from other places if he made them suffer losses. However, no one would care about the small individual investors who had tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of yuan in their hands. They were just leaks. When the weather was good, Rao Xinghai was happy and brought them to make a fortune. When there was a slight disturbance, like this time, when there was a strong wind from the sky, Rao Xinghai would decisively cut some of his leaks to shelter them from the wind and rain. In fact, this kind of thing could be understood by anyone with a discerning eye. Anyone who had been in the financial circle for a few years and was well-informed could understand. However, their words did not carry much weight. Even if they said it, nobody would care or believe them. No matter how loud they shouted, their opinions could only appear in the corners that few people could see. As for the influential media in the industry, not only would they not expose this matter, but they would also be incited by many people to applaud this investment and financing. They would stand up and endorse this deal, tricking more people to reduce the losses of the huge Rising Sea Fund. The gap created by the small funds that ran away would be filled by countless small people who smelled the fragrance and thought that it was a chance to make a fortune. Buy low, don't buy high. Many people put in firewood. This was the unchanging truth that many people who did not know the industry believed in. If Tingguang Media really went bankrupt in the future, the media would pretend to be mute again. The countless individual investors who drowned could only grit their teeth and swallow the blood, blaming themselves for not being smart enough. This was finance. When the volume had reached a certain level, unless it completely collapsed, there would always be countless leaks to share the losses. The incomparably huge financial machine trembled violently in pain for a while. It shook off the rust on its body, but could still continue moving forward with the blood and flesh of the leaks. Of course, even if Cheng Guang did not really like the way Rao Xinghai and the old masters handled this matter, he had no intention of stopping them now. It was not that he had lost his conscience and became the same as Rao Xinghai and the old masters. He loved money. After all, it was 1 billion. Who could refuse it? However, what made him truly feel at ease taking this money was because he was sure of one thing. As long as he was still alive, Tingguang Media would not collapse. He was confident in his profitability. He had his own bottom line and principles. Although the current Tingguang Media was only an empty shell of copyright management, if it really could not make profits in the future, it would not be able to continue. At most, he would sacrifice some of his own interests and take a part of Tingguang Agency's business to Tingguang Media. Anyway, he needed to collect faith points. No matter how hard and tiring he was, he could make more similar programs to the previous one. That way, he would be able to support the $1 billion. He knew himself well. Perhaps the $20 billion brand valuation of other celebrities or sports stars was mostly fake. However, Cheng Guang knew that as the owner of the heavenly Holy Grail, as the current god of stunts, the $20 billion valuation was an underestimation of his own brand value. What a joke. The old man had 3,000 skill worlds. How could that be possible? Moreover, what if I really couldn't do it with my current methods and got pissed off? What if I try to drive an F1 car? The invincible and enhanced version of Schumacher from the East, would I be afraid? Before he was injured, Schumacher had an annual income of hundreds of millions of US dollars. His brand value was billions of US dollars. Why couldn't I have it? Or else, what if I took the dart stunt and went to play golf? Tiger Woods would cry too, wouldn't he? Moreover, I had just finished acting in a play, and there was already such a buzz on the internet. What if I were to finish filming women and shoot a few blockbuster movies and win an Oscar? Or else I could go and play boxing. I could make Klitschko and Klitschko sleepless at night, make Tyson afraid to watch the game, and make Mayweather and Pacquiao change the name of the game of the century to the game of the year. Do you believe me? Also, the old man now has the strongest body in the history of mankind. What if I learn basketball or football? When that time comes, I can lead the League Two team to be promoted 3 times in 3 years and win the English Premier League title. I can lead the Chinese team to win the World Cup. What if the old man becomes the strongest player in history? Who dares to say that my personal IP is not worth $20 billion? If I really reach a point of no return, I still have a trick up my sleeves. It is said that the sex industry is the strongest technological driving force for human evolution. What this old man has is an invincible pile driver that can kill gods, Buddhas, ghosts see worries, and flowers bloom when they see flowers. If worst comes to worst, this old man will film an invincible threesome in history where I play world-class piano music while having sex with thousands of women. The 4K Blu-ray disc is only $99. You won't lose out at $99. You won't be fooled. 2K Internet HD video is only $39. $39. I'll bring you to show off and fly. VR Full HD video is only $199. If I don't earn $10 billion from this film, how can I be worthy of the old man? I might not be able to sell it in China, but I can sell it abroad legally. Ahem, take it, take it. This sacrifice is a little too big. I can't accept it. In short, Rao Xinghai's $1 billion will not be a loss. At that time, those small retail investors who were dragged into the financial crisis would not only not suffer, but they would also be able to make money. As for those major shareholders who got Rao Xinghai's compensation and cashed out, those small and medium-sized funds who looked like they knew the business but ran away by shorting the market, they will be the ones who will lose out. In the past, Chen Guang did not understand these principles. Everything about finance was taught to him by Liu Fei. Chen Guang felt that what he was doing now was not only not scamming the small investors, but robbing the rich to help the poor. I can make them rich together, even if Shanghai only owns 5% of the shares. Just like that, he stood on the temporary stage under the Lida building with the radiance of a great man. He looked at the hundreds of media reporters and thousands of onlookers. He smiled brightly. He smiled brightly until he received the IP list of Qingguang Media stockpiled by Liu Xiaoyang. This long list was the result of Liu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu's hot-bloodedness in the past 2 weeks, running all over the country. These were the fixed assets of Qingguang Media, and Rao Xinghai used them to explain to others when he invested. Although it took less than 2 weeks from the start of work to the signing of these copyrights, and the money spent might not even add up to 20 million, they could brag that it was in billion. Just like before Empresses in the Palace became popular, its movie and TV series copyrights were only worth 7 figures. But now, just based on these 3 words, it should be worth at least a few hundred million, right? However, Chen Guang's expression was dark. This was because he saw a familiar title in the IP list. To be honest, I didn't expect you to buy Empresses in the Palace, Hua, Qinggu, and Langya list. But what the hell is this? What a scam. Fall. After pulling Liu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu to the stage, Chen Guang pointed at the tragic line of words on the IP list and questioned them with gritted teeth. The billionaire young master's cruel, doting wife. Please love me 1,001 times. Yes, that's right. It was by Nyangzi's deceptive book. It should be noted that recently, the White Snake had been shameless in order to write this deceitful book for him. He actually danced striptease in the dormitory. In the end, Lin Jingwei and Xiong couldn't stand it anymore. They dragged him out and beat him up. Only then did they manage to suppress the evil wind. However, Chen Guang never expected to see such an unlucky super long title in this list. The original author of this book was sleeping at the foot of his bed. He licked his toes and begged to buy it, but to no avail. It was too lousy to look at. However, after going around in circles, the copyrights ended up in his hands. What kind of F***CK was this? What kind of vengeful spirit was haunting him? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.